Good evening, everybody. It's 6 o'clock, and we'd like to call the February 15th, 2022 Albany County Commissioners meeting to order. Commissioner Ibarra?
Here.
Commissioner Richardson? Here. Commissioner Gosar also here. Would you stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 3, public hearings. We have none. Item 4, comments from the public. Would anybody like to make a public comment? We'll start in the room here first, and then we'll go online. Anybody like to make a public comment? Okay, how about online? Would anybody like to make a public comment online? Okay,
On any item on the agenda?
sure. Yep, you certainly may.
Are you gonna have discussion on item 20 for the public when you get to that?
Dry Park Road.
Yeah.
Commissioners, you want discussion on this one? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think sometimes it helps the speaker to be at the agenda item, and other times maybe they don't want to wait that long. I think either way is okay.
Yep. Okay, how about last chance for public comment? All right, commissioners, I entertain a motion to close public comment, please.
I so moved.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
aye,
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 5, disclosures. Commissioner Ibarra,
I have none.
Commissioner Richardson.
I have none.
And I have none also. Item 6, considerations of changes to the agenda. Jackie, are there any changes that you have?
No, sir.
Jennifer, any changes?
sir.
Commissioners, any changes? Okay. Item 7, approval of the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve this consent agenda in whole or in part. If you want to pull something out and talk about it, or we can approve the entire consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 8 on the regular agenda. Present for approval amendment number 7 to contract between Albany County, Wyoming and Long Building Technologies for the purpose of extending the contract to March 15th, 2022. Jake, good evening. The floor is yours.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, and I'll turn you up a bit here.
Okay,
Okay.
excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, this is just an amendment to extend the completion date for the building access control project. Under our last agreement, we changed it to the end of December. And the contractor has had quite a bit of difficulty in getting the parts, and we just want to extend that deadline to keep consistent with our contract language and contract that we have with them. There's no change to the budget of the project, just time extension.
Thanks, Jake. Commissioners, any questions? I entertain a motion for item 8 then.
Move that we approve item 8 presented.
second,
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
aye,
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 9, present for discussion, concept level design layout and cost estimate prepared by a RET design group for the Board of County Commissioners meeting room. Jake, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Commissioners, again, this is the complete kind of document that we had a RET design prepare for us back when we awarded their contract in the fall. We had them put together a conceptual layout and a cost estimate so we could understand what the real costs were before we jumped in and just started having an architect design it and then doing the construction on it. And this is just a discussion item. I just want to present it to you. I'm not asking for any action on this item at this time. I just want to quickly go over this so you understand in a public setting what we're looking at, and maybe at a future point we can discuss what we want to do and how we want to proceed. But I've got, and I think it's in the agenda packet, but ultimately the overall total cost all in with design, permitting, and construction, we're looking at a cost estimate of approximately $170,000, which would just be to remodel the commissioner's room there, and do some upgrades and change the layout and bring it sort of up to date. And I guess that's really all I want to discuss is the cost of that, and just to present it to everyone. And if they have any questions, I can definitely entertain them.
Commissioners, any questions for Jake?
I don't have any questions, Jake. I just love the layout. Commissioner Gosar and I were just talking about it beforehand. It's like almost La La Land.
Mr. Richardson, anything?
I never understood why that corner of the room was dedicated to storage when we need the whole room. So I'm looking forward to it being more functional. We have sound system issues, and we kind of always have. The flooring is awesome. See, when you take walls out and you don't have green carpet to put in where the wall was, you just put tan carpet there, and then you can see the previous layout. It's really classy. So it'll be good to update this place and make it so that everybody can use it a little better.
So just to give you an overview, this closet will come out, and then the dais here will be reoriented more facing the door, and smaller. And then the chairs will be in rows 90 degrees from where you are. And then there'll be a lectern and places for people to come up and talk on a microphone, whether they're in a wheelchair or whether they're standing. So really excited about having 30 chairs spaced, so that you don't have to sit right next on somebody's lap like we're doing now. But hopefully we can get this done. Jake, thank you so much.
Okay,
for
yes.
that.
All right, thank you. And I just for future reference, I'll be bringing something to the floor at a future meeting to maybe get some direction on how we would like to proceed in getting this completed or not. So thank you, Chairman, Commissioners.
Thank you, Jake. Item 10, present for approval, First Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding between the Board of Commissioners of the County of Albany, Wyoming, flying through the Albany County Human Resources Office and the Albany County Public Library for HR services for the purpose of removing the HR services related to hiring, benefits, and payroll included in the original MOU. I don't know that I see Christina on. Anybody else? So I have just a, do you have it?
I was gonna say, I can give you that update. So the library had reached out to Christina about doing their own payroll, given the scheduling that happens within the library. And apparently there are changes that get made regularly to the payroll program or the time cards, because people forget to clock in and forget to clock out. And at this point, they have to contact Christina, who then has to get approval from a supervisor and all of those things. So the library thinks it would be more functional for them if they were to handle their own payroll, benefits, all of those things. So this amendment removes the items from the original MOU that had Christina as HR handling those things and leaves the rest of the MOU unchanged until we work on a new one to start July 1.
Commissioners, any questions?
I'm just curious what's left in the MOU.
It's still,
This seems pretty comprehensive.
right, it still has HR doing more of the HR functions and not the payroll functions.
Gotcha.
So employee investigations, discipline, work improvement plans, all of those things HR will still be involved in.
even maybe with help with job descriptions,
Right.
postings and things.
Yeah, if they need that help, I'm certain Christina's available to help.
Commissioners, any further questions? I'd entertain a motion for item 10, please.
I move that we approve the amendment to the Albany County Library contract for HR services.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
aye,
Aye. All those opposed, same sign, please. That motion carries. Item 11, present for approval memorandum of understanding between the Wyoming Department of Health, Public Health Division and Albany County for the purpose of utilizing grant funds for COVID-19 disease surveillance and testing activities in an amount not to exceed $25,000. Kim, good evening. Thank you.
How are you all?
Doing well, thanks.
So this is pretty straightforward. This is just a grant that's coming down from the state, and it's specifically for surveillance and testing. If you have any questions.
Commissioners, any questions for Kim? I'd entertain a motion for item 11 then, please.
I move that we approve item 11 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 12, present for approval memorandum of understanding between the Wyoming Department of Health, Public Health Division and Albany County for the purpose of utilizing grant funds for COVID-19 vaccination outreach activities in an amount not to exceed $504,559. Kim, you're up again.
Yes, and so this one goes till 2024. And basically pretty straightforward again. This is where the money for the additional sign for road and bridge is coming from as well.
Commissioners, any questions? I'd entertain a motion for item number 12 then.
I move that we approve item number 12.
second,
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
aye,
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Item 13, present for approval, recommendation from the review committee to award the contract to Logan Simpson for the creation of a joint growth area management plan and regulations. David, good evening. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we received two proposals to help Albany County and the city of Laramie to develop the growth management plan. One was from Ayers Associates and the other was from Logan Simpson. So the review committee reviewed their submittals and held interviews. And they were both very close, both I think competent firms that could have completed this plan for us. But Logan Simpson was the one that by consensus was who the review committee chose to complete this plan. So if you agree, then we'll get that approved, and then we'll go on to the next item, which will be the contracts.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions for David? I thought they were really comprehensive, both of them, is what I read through. And thanks to that committee, because their notes and their scoring was really nice, interesting to follow.
Sure.
What I could read.
I was
They're writing.
reading
So,
Yeah.
you might need to go to typewriters for
That's why they give
word processing. Yeah. I'd entertain a motion for item 13, please.
I move that we approve item 13 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Tracy, I see your hand up. Has it been there a while?
No, good evening, Commissioner Go-Stars and Richardson and Ibarra. I just lifted my hand up because I don't know that we had a chance to meet previously on identifying where the funding source for this would be coming from. And I just wanted to discuss that real quick.
David, had you any ideas about that?
I have no clue.
Okay. How about-
So it was, I mean, this was done by the MOU between you guys and the city
Yeah.
that we would provide that. So I'm not sure where the funding was supposed to come.
Jackie, how about you?
Mr. Chairman, at this time, we do have funds available
You could use funds out of the general fund from cash on hand. You could also, if necessary, use funds from the 1% optional sales tax. I believe that there's more funds available that have not been allocated in 1% for your consideration.
Thank you, Jackie. Tracy, would you have a recommendation on which of those funds to use?
I guess it really depends also on the item number 16 as well, because we're going to deplete our cash on hand, which wouldn't leave us set up very well for the next fiscal year. So that kind of gives me a little concern. So maybe take one from one place and one from the other, perhaps. So maybe this one from 1%.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, please.
I would like to amend my motion to include the provision that these be paid for out of the 5th cent optional sales tax.
Second agrees.
Second agrees.
Any further discussion on the amendment? I guess we'll. Do you amend your motion? Or did you just add to it? So
I did amend it.
Okay, so we'll vote on the amendment to the motion.
Okay.
All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. That motion, that amendment carries. Now we're back to the motion. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. And then 14, present for approval contract between City of Laramie Board of Commissioners of the County of Albany, Wyoming, and Logan Simpson for the development of the Albany County and City of Laramie Joint Growth Management Plan and regulations in the amount of $296,100. And that's to be split between the city and the county. Is that correct, David?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, the total cost is, whatever it was.
$148,050 is the $148,050 is the county's cost, which is half of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, it's interesting. So we introduced the where it would be paid from component, and the previous item was just to award
Yeah.
just on, the contract to Logan Simpson. So
We'll do it again. How about that?
so this time I will have it properly motion.
Any other questions before we get to that motion? All right, fire away, please, Commissioner Richardson.
I move that we approve the contract between the City of Laramie Board of County Commissioners and Logan Simpson for the development of Albany County and City of Laramie Joint Growth Management Plan and regulations in the amount of $296,100, half of which $148,050 will be paid for by the county. Out of 5th penny optional sales tax.
Second. Well done.
They moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. David, thank you. Please pass along the thanks to those good folks who read through those exhaustive reports and did the interviews. That was it. Item 15, present for discussion, county's interest in purchasing any of the furniture in Medicine Bow Technologies LLC space at 3821 Beach Street and direct county staff on how to proceed. Jennifer, thank you.
So this is related to Medicine Bow terminating their lease with us effective April 15th of this year. Toby Schaaf reached out and inquired as to whether or not the county would be interested in purchasing any of the office furniture that's left in, or that will be left in Medicine Bow's offices. So I was bringing it to you with the sample of photos that Josh Boudreau took to see how you'd like to proceed. If there was items the county as commissioners wanted to purchase, if you want to open it up to departments to have access to potentially be able to purchase, or if you just want to say, thank you, we appreciate the offer, but no, thank you. The caveat is we don't have pricing on any of these things. We have to work with Ivinson to establish pricing if we decide what we are purchasing, if we are purchasing and what we are purchasing.
And is this everything, Jennifer, these pictures?
Those are representative pictures, Josh said. He said there was a lot. It gives you an idea of some of the things that are there, but he said there were numerous of the, like the 4 square desk ones that are out in the center of that big open room. There were a lot of the older wooden desks that he said are like UW surplus desks that they have up there. There's the big conference table and chairs. And I haven't been out there, so I don't know. I'm going to go out there with Josh just to look for purposes of leasing later, but I haven't been there yet, so I don't know.
Okay, commissioners, any other thoughts, questions?
I want the plan.
I know.
The plant,
There's some
it's
really
gonna die if somebody doesn't water it.
How would we get that? Would you send all the pictures out to all the county program heads?
If
Is that what you're thinking?
That was my thought. If you decide that you want to allow department heads to be able to have the option to purchase things, I will verify with Toby and IMH that it's possible to purchase individual things and not as an entirety of a lot. And then I can go out there with Josh, take pictures and number all of the things that are available and then send it out to department heads on a first come, first served basis and say, here you go, here's what's available.
Yeah. Commissioner Richardson, any thoughts?
My thought is, if I was Ivinson, I would want to leave that furniture in there. And if I'm the county, the challenge being that, thank you. The challenge being that you have to, somebody has to move that as a commissioner, I don't even know if I'd want them to leave it for free so we could decide what we want and then have the challenge of moving the rest of it out. Because it's probably worth about what it's cost to make something happen in terms of time and effort. So I'm kind of at the thought that if they want to leave it, fine. And if they take it away, great. And maybe the next tenant would want it and maybe they wouldn't, but at some point it would become a burden on the county to make that furniture go away. So because of that, I'm not particularly inclined to pay for it. I just, if they want to leave it, they should leave it. If they don't, they shouldn't, right? And it could become our property, the county property for the next tenant to use it. I just can't see money changing hands.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know it was a hassle somewhat for Grady to remove all that furniture out of the office space we have for the prevention specialist. So don't really feel like going down that road again.
I'm not sure.
And my suggestion would be, if you're going to open it up to department heads, that we clarify with IMH, the things that we are purchasing will be removed by our department heads by however it is they facilitate that move. The rest of the things are your responsibility to get out.
Jennifer, you have a sense of any place that's really short on furniture that they're sitting on books?
I don't, and I haven't asked around because I wasn't sure whether it would even be an option from this commission. And if your general consensus was just have them get it all out, I didn't want to raise hopes and then be like, never mind. It's not going to work out well for everything as a whole.
I think that conference table might be nice to have if we want to get that building for public health.
It appears to be a huge conference table.
Yeah, I'm just at, hey, if they don't want to put up with having to get it out of there, they could leave it for us to deal with and get out of there or use or something. But I'd almost prefer them to clear it out than to leave it for us. So beyond that, paying for it, then I really can't see that. It's like, who wants it the least? So that's kind of where I'm at, and
my nonprofit little brain is just spinning up, right? That's just not how that works in the nonprofit world, but yeah, that's fine with me. So do we want to just see if they'll leave it and then we'll go from there? And if they won't?
Okay.
Yeah,
I will reach out to Toby and let you know at the next meeting what they have to say.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Item 16, present for approval memorandum of understanding between Albany County, Wyoming and the city of Laramie, Wyoming for emergency management service in the Emergency Operations Center for the purpose of providing effective and efficient collaboration of the county's emergency management agency, Homeland Security Department services within Albany County and the city of Laramie to benefit the public that both governmental bodies serve. Jennifer, thank you.
I was gonna say, I shouldn't have sat down, I didn't pay attention. So this MOU is to allow for our EMA departments to use, they're all acronyms that start with E, the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Center in Fire Department number 3 in West Laramie. So the EOC has been out there for a long time, but since EMA relinquished their lease at the 2020 Grand Building, they have been using the EOC facility as their main office space. So this MOU recognizes that it is now being used as office space and not just during emergency office space. It also reduces, the city was paying $10,000 a year as a contribution to EMA. That has been reduced in this MOU to $5,000 a year in recognition of the fact that it's being used all the time and there's not additional rent being paid by EMA.
Super, love it. Commissioner Rivera, Commissioner, say anything?
The one thought that I have is that the EMA, and this is a question for Jackie. It's a question of what pocket the dollars come out of, right? If EMA was using soft money or grant money to pay for office space, I don't know if it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, or if it hurts EMA to not have that revenue from the city. Does that make sense? Is it just a push in the end?
I'm going to defer to Bailey.
I'm asking a pretty esoteric question.
Well, you know, the loss in revenue, actually, when you offset it with the amount of rent they were paying at the building at, or the space at American National, or pardon me, Uniwild. I mean, it really offsets the funds that we would receive, but yet the funds that we pay out also. So I believe it's pretty much almost a wash.
Yeah, maybe I was sort of asking a hard money, soft money question.
Well, Tracy
Does that
has
make sense?
an idea. So Tracy, and then we'll go to you, Sheriff Vance.
Good evening again, commissioners. My understanding is basically what Jackie just said, that if we're not expending the money for the rent, we're not getting reimbursed for the rent either. So it is a wash, and it is, I guess, soft money because it is all grant money.
So it does benefit the city to the tune, because they're probably paying out of their general fund, and they need that back. So that's a good thing.
Yeah. Sheriff, we'll go to you just a minute. We got Bailey with the idea.
I just had a chance to look at the MOU. The rent at Uniwild is only costing us $3,300. So in my opinion, it probably would have be better to pay rent as opposed to losing the full $10,000 from them. But
We're only gonna lose 5.
no, but because wouldn't we be losing? Sorry, losing 5. So it'd only be $3,300. That's what they're paying in rent for Uniwild. So
Thank you, Sheriff Applehands.
I haven't had a chance to look at the MOU, but it was written in the old MOU that we were paying an additional $3,000 for the EOC. So if that got written out of the old MOU and the new MOU has just the 5,000 in it, it might be a little bit of a wash, but that we will take a little bit of a hit on that EMA budget.
Yeah. So Jennifer says that the EOC is not included in this MOU, and that
That additional $3,000 payment is not in the MOU.
from the city to the county, or from the county to the city.
Correct.
And that additional payment is not in it, Sheriff Appleton. Of the 3,000 to the EOC.
Then, yeah, I mean, we'd still lose a little bit of money, but not nearly as much as we were paying out for two different, basically two different departments.
Yeah. So we're gonna return, they're just gonna eliminate half of the EMA payment, so from 10,000 to 5,000. And then I think we save 3,300 in rent and then 3,000 in an EOC payment, so that puts us in 1,300 to the good, if my math's correct?
And it may be, Sheriff, is it correct that that $3,000 payment came out of your budget rather than EMA's budget? Or did it come out of EMA?
No, I believe that came out of the EMA budget.
So if that's the case, then we should be between the combination of the two on the plus side.
Okay. Commissioners, any other questions? And Bailey, thank you for that quick research. I'd entertain a motion for item 16.
I move that we approve item 16 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 17, present for approval memorandum of understanding between the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and the Board of Commissioners of the County of Albany, Wyoming for ambulance services to establish the terms and conditions under which the city provides EMS outside the city limits of Laramie within Albany County as requested through Emergency Dispatch Center from January 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2024. Jennifer, thank you.
So I'll give you a bit of background as to how we got here, and then I believe Tracy and or Jackie have some discussion about paying for it going forward. At the direction of the commission, we had talked about working out that MOU for EMS services with the city after we implemented the MOU with the city for the jail services, housing city inmates at the Albany County Detention Center. So I worked with Dan Johnson, who is the fire chief at the city. He and Janine presented the pro forma that they use, which is essentially my understanding from Dan is that's what he uses as his budgeting for within the fire department. So it has all of his income, all of his expenses. After our meeting, he went through and split out all of the hospital transfers from the numbers that he had in there and the revenue that they got from that, so that the pro forma that's, I believe, in your packet should be just the numbers for calls that do not include hospital transfers. And of those numbers, and based on the number of calls, the county percentage is approximately 20% of the calls that EMS does within a year. And that's anything outside of city limits. It's not necessarily for county residents. It's accidents on the roads. It's if somebody is injured in the mountains, any of those things. If there's a call outside of city limits, that's allocated to the county calls. So in talking to Dan, after I talked to him the first time, I talked to Tracy and Jackie and said, if we do this based on the current pro forma numbers, that's $440,000 a year without getting into the details of discussing with Dan, like really where do these numbers come from? Are they appropriately allocated to the county? We didn't end up doing any of that because after I talked to Dan and Dan spoke with officials at the city, they agreed that for this initial contract, having a fixed rate sum that increases in the second year, but having a fixed rate sum is easier for budgeting for our purposes as we look at moving forward. So in talking to Dan and in his work with the city, the number that they came up with was $225,000 for the first full year and $275,000 for the second full year. Then we talked about it more and we weren't certain about what date to start it. So rather than going back to the beginning of this fiscal year, which would have been July 1, we talked about, or we put in this agreement to start it on January 1st of 2022. So there's actually 2.5 years in the MOU that's in your packet. The first half year is based on half of the amount of that first year. And then the second year has the increase. And the other reason for that reduced rate was Commissioner Gosar, you had indicated working with other county partners to see about long-term sustainability and funding. And so in talking to Dan, the city agreed that the intention was to give us a larger window to be able to work out those deals and see what it was we needed to do to come up with long-term sustainable type funding so that the county isn't on the hook for almost $500,000 a year for EMS services.
Thank you, Jennifer. And just to add to that a little bit, it was interesting to know that EMS services are not legally obligated to anybody in Wyoming, and nobody is responsible to provide EMS services, neither the city, the county, the state, to any of the residents. In some counties, Sweetwater comes to mind, they're wrestling with a bill of around $2 million to fund their EMS. And so we have enjoyed an amazing EMS service because many of our firefighters are also paramedics, and that allows them to respond differently if somebody is injured than if they were just basic life support certified. In that, we have not been a partner, and so you collaborate. I think you make a thing much more sustainable. This has become an issue throughout the state. I sit on a state committee, and there are 10 entities, I think, right now that are really struggling to see if they can do EMS going forward at all. And so I thought that this was an opportune time, since we had worked with the jail detention agreement that had escaped us for a while. If they were paying for services that we were rendering to them, that we might return the favor. Unfortunately, the stuff that happens on I-80, probably neither the city nor the county's deal. But I'm not sure we're going to get the state to pay for it just yet. And so that is, some of the costs in there. That's where they lie. Yeah, and I think there's another opportunity for other partners to now engage, making the first move as a county, saying, this is something that we think is important. We're going to fund it. Maybe you guys could help us fund it also. So, commissioners, any questions for Jennifer or myself?
So Jennifer, is our first payment due when? By the end of this fiscal year?
No, so it's written that it's due 45 days after it's invoiced.
Okay.
Going forward, it would likely be invoiced right after the fiscal year. We didn't specify a date, just 45 days after whenever it's invoiced. My guess is if we implement it with a January 1 start date, we will get an invoice fairly promptly after that. City Council is also considering this item as well as the EMA agreement for EOC tonight as well.
Any follow-ups, Commissioner Rivera? Commissioner Richardson, anything?
I have a few. You said January of 2022, but I think you meant to say January of 2023.
The agreement is written January of 2022. As it is in your packet, it's written as January of 2022. I had some discussion this morning with Tracy about the concerns about funding it, and we were looking into the mill levies that are allocated to the hospital, what it takes to increase those if we were just spitballing all kinds of ideas, whether the hospital trustees vote to increase that mill levy, then it has to go out to public vote to increase that mill levy, and then allocate that percentage of that mill levy increase directly to EMS services, because currently, and Tracy can fill in where I'm wrong and provide you far more in-depth information, but currently the hospital has 3 mills, which equates to just over $1.7 million a year that the hospital gets from those mills on county property taxes that are paid by all the residents within the county.
Tracy, you have your hand up. Please go ahead. Thank you, Jennifer.
Yes.
Good evening. Once again, thank you, Chairman Gosar. So we did discuss the mill levy thing. I'm sorry, I keep getting an echo of my own voice from the room. I don't know if it's that loud. But, okay, so I do have some concerns about funding this because we don't have a revenue or a source identified quite yet for where the funds are going to come from. And then once again, that goes back to the depleting of the cash on hand and then the concerns of going into the next fiscal year. However, I think if we could start with this. I mean, because I do believe that the county does need to pay its fair share. It's only the proper thing to do, but there's other options. I think there's one that we stumbled on, and I don't even know if this is a possibility, but it says not to exceed 4 mills by a rural health care district. So I don't know if we can formate something like that going down the road, or there's the mill levies can be, they are receiving the 3 mills, like Jennifer said, for about 1.7 million annually for the hospital for their operations. And it does need to go out to vote, but it can be raised up to 6 mil. And maybe we can do perhaps say 1 mil, which it generates about $479,000 a year, and divert that directly towards paying of, EMS services, not just for the benefit of county residents, but also city residents. I just think we could probably get more creative and find other ways to help pay for this. But I guess I really like that it goes to the voters too, because regardless, all of this money is taxpayer money, and we need to do what the taxpayers would prefer to do.
Thank you, Tracy. And I agree. I think if people want it, they'll fund it. If they don't want it, they won't fund it. And then, we figure that out. So, Commissioner Richardson, do you have anything to follow up?
I do. So I'm going to kind of take you down the thought path on the whole subject. I actually think that it's not appropriate that the city has borne this cost. They get without help from the county government. Now that help could come from us in some different ways. The general fund, it's hard to make a policy decision without a funding mechanism, which is kind of what we're faced with tonight, right? And because there's a hospital district, when you look around the state where they do struggle with EMS, some of the hospitals are county hospitals, and they are sort of fiscally supervised by the commissioners directly, which is, God help us all, I wouldn't want to have that responsibility, right? I know Carvin is one of those. It seems to me like the hospital is a good partner, and they're, the city doesn't have any leverage if they want to negotiate with the hospital directly. But you basically have an ambulance service that brings, it's a chauffeur service for people who are in bad need to come right to their door. A good portion of them pay, right? I mean, there's some indigent care, and we've seen the statistics on that. But the challenge that we have is that we have our willingness, and then we have the limitation that we don't. There's not enough, change in the couch cushions to dig around and fund that. I mean, if we paid up our cash on hand, we could do it one time and we would be done, in a contract we would be obligated to going forward. And right now, the county citizens are paying already to the hospital district. And we don't necessarily micromanage how they use that money or what they allocate it to. But the hospital makes money, and we're stuck to the revenue sources. We don't have any local taxing authority. We're stuck with the revenue sources that the state gives us. And then we have entities that receive tremendous service that don't pay any property or sales tax. So if you talk about the city, their primary revenue source is sales tax and fees, for enterprise funds, development fees, and so on. But basically, sales tax and fees. And in a certain sense, the county residents pay sales tax, and because everybody has to shop in the city. We're all sharing that burden in a basic way through sales tax, regardless of whether you live inside the city or outside. And then on the property tax, we are all contributing mills to the hospital to function. So to me, I think mills is the way it needs to be done. And the entities that consume the services that don't pay any sales tax or property tax, like the university, the school district, you know, lots of nonprofit state properties, you know, all of these things, they diminish the tax base and make it harder to pay for these things, right? But they want that service. So if we were going to look for partners in the community, the university would be a great one to share in it. To me, I think that the way to go about it is mills, and I'm actually tonight I don't know how to approve or go forward with an MOU without a funding mechanism. Because then we're obligating ourselves to a contract that we don't have a funding mechanism for. And so there's been tremendous work put into this, and I agree with it fundamentally, I agree with it. I don't know how to make a promise that I don't know if the taxpayers would fund, or, I mean, we get to set the mills every year in January. So, you know, we know where to get the money if we don't have it in our budget, which we don't, but I don't really want to do that in a backhanded sort of way. Does that make sense? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
But we're gonna see what Tracy's thoughts are on it. She knows about the money, and so, please, Tracy.
Hi again. I think I've had the opportunity to speak more tonight than all my commissioner meetings together, but I really do like the idea of the mill levy process, but I mean, it's a lengthy process because that increase from the 3 mil to a 6 mil or 4 mil, whatever that increase, does have to go before the voters. Is there a possibility where we can have a work session with the city and the hospital, and maybe even bring the university in and just fill them out? Because I mean, the hospital trustees would have to also approve moving toward a mill levy as well. I mean, so we have to get them on board if that's the route we want to go. Jennifer, is that kind of the gist of what we talked about this morning?
Yes, so from my quick read of the statute this morning, if the hospital has the ability to go up to 6 mils, but anything above 3 mils has to be approved by the hospital board of trustees and then taken to the general public in an election.
Yeah, well, now I have a different question. Are they at 3 mils now?
Correct.
So basically, this bill is 25% of the 3 mils. So when we set the mills, you know, we could reduce what we send to the hospital and basically take, we commissioners, I think, this is a legal question, we could retain that money and then pay for it out of the general fund, because we would retain that money to the general fund.
Mills are set annually, and Tracy can talk to you about how you're supposed to have your budget and then work backwards from the budget into the calculation of your mills. She talked with me this morning, so that's the only knowledge I have of it at this point.
Well, I understand that, but the legal aspect of it.
Because they're set annually, I mean, I think
we could change the way we set the mills. So we could basically say, hey, hospital, we can't micromanage you to use some portion of the 1.7, but we can take back a quarter of it, and then we can pay our obligation in the MOU the same way. And it would essentially be the mill money being retracted and us paying it out of the general fund.
correct. From my quick read of the statute today, there is no obligation on the commissioners to retain a set mill levy for any of the entities that get mills year after year without change. So I think if the Board of Commissioners wanted to reduce a mill levy, that is a tool that's available, and then does put that money back.
See, so the city has no leverage in a negotiation with the hospital, but we do. So if we team up in an MOU, and we want to fund ambulance service, and we have a way to pay for it. But
Yeah, we can find the money. Tracy, you get your hand up. Do you mean just keep your hand up?
Probably not. Was more just listening at that point, and I don't think I ever took it down to begin with. Sorry.
Jackie, please.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I feel it's my statutory responsibility as the budget officer to offer some ideas and suggestions. I realize that this MOU that you're looking at will commit us to $125,000 for the next 6 months, of which we, I talked earlier, funds could come out of the general fund or the 1% miscellaneous uncommitted funds. Because there are so many questions and concerns and so many players that can come to the table to discuss this, is there a consideration to look at funding for the next 6 months, come back with the ideas of whether or not the hospital is even interested in considering looking at the meals or bringing other players to the table? I know that there was some discussion of the possibility that the legislature is looking at possibly funding for EMS. Are we being a little premature in entering into a 3-year contract and committing to funds that we will be bound to pay, not being certain of what that revenue source is going to be for future funding? It's just a thought that I'd like to present to you for your consideration.
Commissioner Barra, anything?
I agree. I think we need to know where we're going to fund this for the next 2 years. I have nothing to add to what Commissioner Richardson said. I agree with everything there. I do believe it's some responsibility of IMH to step up and help out with this. Nothing's free. So I personally would like to maybe table this and visit it down the line when we have these discussions with the stakeholders.
I don't have a problem with that, but I do, should we not fund it, then it just passes it on to the city, right? And we have an obligation, right? That was a burr under our saddle in the detention center. And we didn't like that, nor should we like it to be done to somebody else. And so I don't have a problem talking about what the funding sources will be, but I think we owe this money, whether the hospital comes in or it doesn't come in, right? This is money that is being spent and paid for by the city of Laramie, and it has been for decades. And so we all enjoy those services. That mill levy discussion is a multi-year discussion, if I understand it. And you know, we'd all would like to have $250,000 more in our bank account, but maybe there's ARPA money, maybe there's some other type of funding until we get to that spot where we know where that is. But I don't want to wait till July, right? I think that we owe this money for this year. I think they've been magnanimous about providing EMS services to the entire county for however long they've been doing it, since the 70s probably. And so sooner rather than later, I think we're going to end up with the idea that we're going to have to pay something. And that's our duty as citizens, right? Is to pay for services that we use. And if the county is using services, we should pay for it.
No, I don't have a problem.
And then I
with
think
that
we
at all.
have an opportunity to say to those entities that are not using and not paying, okay, we were not paying, we were using, we came to the table and paid. What's it going to take? What do you have to offer? And the more people pitching into this, the more sustainable our EMS services are. And I think there's probably 21 other counties that would kill for the EMS services as they exist in Albany County, or so I'm told. So,
Mr. Chairman, I would like to table it, but I do want to say that I agree with you. I don't like because it's easy for us to say, hey, man, just keep doing what you've always been doing, city. And I don't really think that that's appropriate. So I do want us to get after it and go figure out what the this funding source might be. To me, it's a pretty big bomb to drop into a budget. Now, if we were working with this in May and June to fold into our next year's fiscal year budget, it's a different discussion than trying to amend our budget without any additional revenue at this point in our fiscal year. Pretty tough. So this is not very timely.
Jennifer?
I just wondered if the decision of the board ultimately ends up being to table this, how would you like staff to reach out to the city to set a work session? Would you like to include the hospital? Is there anything you would like city staff or county staff to be doing in this interim to help you gather more information or explore the various sources? Or is there other things you would like to provide direction that we can provide you to help as you move forward in your decision making?
I think I'd like this commission, or at least a member of the commission, to sit down with Jackie's office and Tracy's office and give a few ideas of which route we might go down, and then take a look at what those look like. And then if we pick one or two, maybe then we could maybe narrow your search a bit. Jennifer, I don't want to set you guys off on a myriad of tangents. Commissioners?
Yeah, and I want to just reiterate that we know we have a responsibility to pay for this. Certainly. We need to be made sure that none of us here are arguing that.
Right. And that's fine, and I'm happy to communicate that to Dan Johnson. I just wanted to clarify if there was anything you needed one or some of us to be doing in the interim. We were certain of what that was.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Jennifer, I'd like to thank you and Chief Johnson for hammering this out, both the EMA agreement and this agreement. We're mostly there, and that is a place that this commission hasn't been with the city in a lot of places. And so detention centers coming, we'll spend some EMS money, and they'll probably wash in the end, but we'll see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess do we need a motion to table it, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay, I entertain a motion to table item 17, I believe it is.
I move that we table item, we table item 17.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 18, present for approval, memorandum of understanding between the Board of Commissioners of the County of Albany, Wyoming, and the City of Laramie, Wyoming, regarding annexation of that portion of Bill Nye Avenue from Grand Avenue to Sherman Hill Road. Thank you, Jennifer.
You're welcome. So this is the MOU that resulted from the discussion that we had initially about the concerns of the Sherman Hill Road Improvement District, if that portion of the road were to be annexed into the city. They worked with Derek Teeney at the city. We worked out the terms of this MOU. I have provided it to the Sherman Hills Road Improvement District. They did not have any concern with the contents of the MOU. I have the acronym wrong, so I need to fix that so that it'll be accurate in your MOU. But Terry Lund relayed to me that all of the board members of the district had looked at it and did not have any concerns. So I think at this point, the MOU covers the concerns that the residents of that neighborhood had about any future developments and whether or not there would be required permits or anything for them to be able to access that portion of Bill Nye once it was annexed. So that's what 18 is.
Okay, commissioners, any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, and I'll entertain a motion for item 18, please.
I move that we approve item 18 as presented.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 19, present for approval an application for annexation from Laramie Land LLC for annexing that portion of Bill Nye Avenue from Grand Avenue to Sherman Hill Road into the city of Laramie, and authorize the chairperson to sign. Jennifer.
This is the actual annexation application from Laramie Land LLC to annex that portion of the road.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions? Well, I'd entertain a motion for 19 then.
Move that we approve item 19 is presented.
Second,
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I have one question. Who owns that road and how does the land transfer to the city of Laramie become official? Because in the end, it needs to be city of Laramie owned street.
Well, and so the county does not own the road. It was dedicated to public use. So that use as a county road will transfer to the use as a city road. But the underlying land was never deeded to, it wasn't deeded to the HOA district out there. It wasn't deeded to the county at the time the road was created. It's like a lot of our old roads where.
It's dedicated for public use.
Yes.
So does the city have an issue with the fact that they would own improvements and have to maintain something that they don't have title to?
I don't believe so, because I think fundamentally
It's really the same thing.
it's the same thing that we do with all of our roads, and I'm sure they do with some of theirs as well on these older roads.
Okay.
Any other questions, Commissioner? I'd entertain a motion for item 19, please. Oh, okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same side. Motion carries. Thanks for keeping me honest, Jackie. Item 20, present for discussion, closure of Dry Park Road, AKA Paintbrush Road, and Scott Davis's request to have the county reopen the portion of the road closed by Donald and Deborah Owens. Jennifer, please.
So this is on your agenda again at Commissioner Ibarra's request. She had been contacted by several county residents about the reopening of Dry Park Road. And I will tell you that when I started with the county, not all that long ago, I sat with Alan Frank and Rob Fisher about Dry Park Road, and because it had been closed, I'm not certain when, but I believe it was around 2006, if not 2002, somewhere in there. And we have a lot of commenters in the room who are here to speak to you about their opinions about it. So one of them likely has far more information than I do. And since then, it has been contentious. The county has not done anything with regard to that road. I know when Head Trent was county attorney, she looked into it. She reached out to title companies about getting title insurance for that portion of the road to see about moving forward to dedicate it as a county road, and that wasn't going to happen. Essentially, there is a small portion of the Dry Park Road that connects to Fox Creek Road that does not have an easement or right-of-way recorded for the road. So Mr. and Miss Owens are the ones who closed the road right where it comes off of Fox Creek. Mr. Davis, based on what I was able to find from Alan's files and what's been recorded, his property line does not touch Fox Creek Road. So he, in 2002, the Owens, Mr. and Mrs. Owens gave to Mr. and Mrs. Davis a 30-foot easement to be able to cross their portion, or the portion of their property that has the access for Mr. and Mrs. Owens to reach their property. That easement is limited easement, and it is for ingress and egress from the property for the grantees, other benefited owners, because there are people beyond Mr. and Mrs. Davis's property, or there are additional lots beyond Mr. and Mrs. Davis's property that I believe access through that area as well. Their heirs assigned, invitees, permittees, and employees. So it is not a dedicated to the public type of easement. It's just for ingress and egress to that property. And so after the research that I did, and Rob Fisher is here and he also has comments as well. I don't believe that it is like a lot of the other roads in the county. When there's not that recorded easement and the public road was never established as was permitted by statute forever and ever ago in the early 1930s or something. It didn't happen. And so we don't have title to that road. At this point, it's been closed for somewhere between 15 and 20 years, depending upon whatever date it closed. And I don't believe that it's in the county's best interest to pursue getting an easement or trying to get a prescriptive easement across that portion of the road. I don't believe it would be successful based on the time that has lapsed since the road was closed. And the other part is Drive Park Road is only a seasonal road. It's a Forest Service road, and it's only a seasonal road because it goes into a critical winter area up there. So it is closed for a substantial portion of the year. And the closure of it did not restrict access of county residents to Lake Owen. You can go up through Albany and come back down around that way. And if you get to Lake Owen from Albany, it's 42.8 miles from essentially the courthouse out there. The Lake Owen via Fox Creek Road and Dry Park Road is 40.3 miles. So it's a difference of 2.5 miles for county residents to have to go around through Albany. And I will, if you have questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. And otherwise, Rob has his concerns as well.
Commissioners, any questions for Jennifer? And then we'll have Rob have a go at it. Okay, awesome. Rob, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Basically, I'm just going to give you kind of a synopsis of the maintenance cost on Fox Creek Road. The Dry Park Road is more your guys' decision and through the legal process. But the Fox Creek maintenance costs from January of 2021 last year through this last year. And Fox Creek Road includes 2 miles to the Owens Junction from Highway 11, 5.8 miles from the junction of to Highway 230. So basically this last year, our total maintenance costs were $28,409. That includes just blading or snow removal. I took out all like travel time costs and inspections. This is just the blades being up there and working, either blading the road or plowing snow. We had a total of 230 hours up there last year. Of that, 130 hours were blading the roads and 100 hours was snow removal. It basically costs about $123 an hour when we're up there. And for a blading cycle, we bladed it. Basically, there's 3 blading cycles last year. In around the 1st of June, the middle of August, and then 1st of November. Takes usually about roughly 30 hours in that cycle to blade that road, whether it's 2 blades or 2 blades takes probably 15 hours, 1 blade takes 30. So anyway, we have the cost of blading the road of around $16,000 and the cost of snow removal around $12,000 last year. Some of the concerns I have is I do believe there'd be an increase in traffic volumes on the Fox Creek Road, thus increasing the maintenance demand. Probably would be a lot more vehicle trailer traffic. I know you see a lot of recreationals pulling their long camper trailer plus their side-by-side or 4-wheeler trailers. The Fox Creek Canyon portion of the road is fairly narrow. You have to be very alert as you're trying to, it's even when 2 vehicles meet, let alone if you have 2 trailers. So that's a concern. And I guess my other question would be, what is the Forest Service involvement in this whole process. I found out from Mike, who has a lot of history with the road and bridge, that the Forest Service did maintain that road previously, the whole distance. So, and another question I have is, if the road's gonna be closed seasonally, is it closed to all motorized and pedestrian use, such as hikers and cross-country skiers and that type? That question is asked, because if not, where are they gonna park? Got any questions? Sure, there's gonna be a lot of comments, so.
Commissioners, any questions for Rob?
Maybe later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, who would like to talk? If you, sure, go on ahead, please.
Scott Davis, 10 Cinnamon Bear Road, and thank you, Chairman and Commissioners, for bringing this up and listening to my questions a couple of months ago. Just one point of clarification on the easement that Don Deborah Owens gave us. That was many years ago. Fox Creek Road from the point of beginning in the Y to Highway 11 was not a county road at that point in time. And to get a loan, we had to get legal right of access. We had to get an easement across our property to the point of beginning to Highway 230 to get that loan. And at that time, even the government portion within the canyon, the Forest Service portion, was not dedicated road, but they went ahead and gave us the loan. Since that time, it's been my understanding Fox Creek Road is a dedicated county road, and our property abuts that county road, and I have legal right access through that. Could be totally wrong, but that's what all the surveys that I've seen show. So just a clarification on that. And it's only been about 5 years that Owenses have closed the highway or that road on a permanent basis. I went through a lot of points back in December. I'm going to keep mine pretty short and sweet tonight. I know there's a lot of other people here that want to comment. Just one thing, I want to remind you about that state statute that is out there, 24-1-101, subsection C and D, that a public road being open more than 10 years could be maintained as a public road. I think that's something that really applies to this situation. Just on a personal note, I'm going to skip a lot of my other points. Like I say, I think they're going to be brought up. Property values up there, equal access to public lands. A lot of people have bought in that area over the years because there was access to the national forest through that road. I know I've personally, for 50 plus years, been able to go up to the national forest using that road and stuff, and that was a wonderful privilege. And it's not only just dollar amount, it is that overall where we live and why we access the national forest. If that road is not open, I would request a couple of things of the commissioners. One is get it off the maps and off of GPS. There is hardly a day that goes by that somebody does not stop there at that gate and wonder why they cannot get up that road. It still shows as a public road. If you Google it, it's on a lot of maps, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of people drive up there pulling trailers, going fishing, whatever, and they sit there and wonder where can they go. And I know Langford's have even put up signs, not access through their property. I think they get people driving through. We've had people drive up to our property looking through, and other neighbors have too. So it becomes a problem for us that way. And one thing that I haven't really heard brought up a lot is there are two other property owners beyond Owens's on that road. When that property was bought, Osterman's, I think, were back in the 60s. They bought it, or the 70s. Not sure when the other one was bought, but their titles say to the edge of the road. I think they bought those properties thinking they had legal right of access like my father did. And that is not true at this point in time. And I'm not sure that road being closed, how that would affect them down the road as far as being able to do anything with their properties, kind of like what we ran into. Again, I thank you for your time and consideration. I'm always available if you have any specific questions or if there's something I can help with, so you can let me know.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Anybody else like to talk? Yes, sir. Thank you.
My name is Mike Osterman. And I got land on Fox Creek past the gate. And the issue I got is taking somebody's land for somebody else's convenience. And that's what I feel is being done, what they want to do. The road's so narrow, the creek's right there, so all the land would have to come to me. And we're not ready to go that way yet.
By that, you mean to open it as a regulation with county road. Because you can't take the land from the creek. That's the point, right?
Pardon?
Because you can't get the land from the creek. It would have to come
It
from.
has to come.
Yeah.
And I think there's a minimum of 30 feet. Is that at least we can go? Well, the county.
So I think that the reason that the Forest Service maintained it all the way out to Fox Creek is because there's nowhere to turn their blade around. They just had to run all the way out there to turn their blade around, and turn around and go back in.
Possibly.
And is that a mile and a quarter? How long is that stretch?
Yeah.
About a half mile.
It's a half mile
About a
from
half
Fox
mile.
Creek to the
The
forest
junction
boundary.
to the gate, the Forest Service.
Isn't that the old highway to Keystone?
Yes.
Like going back 120 years or what?
Yep. It was the original road through. I found a map from the 1940s that had Dry Park Road going up to Dry Park, and then Fox Creek Road from the Y was listed as a wagon track.
I think I have one from the 1900s that also shows it from Highway 11, basically up to Keystone, which was the county seat at that time.
So it's kind of similar to Boswell Springs Road, right? You have a historic road that was whatever, the old wagon highway that Walter. And this would have been the old highway but you can't think of it as a highway because, but it was the way everyone went to Keystone. Before there was a highway at Woods Canyon, from Woods Landing up that way. This was the way in there. So for me as a commissioner, the challenge has always been, is there some adverse possession that can happen because the old handshake deals that we have all over the county, it's basically you own land and everybody runs across it. But for whatever reason, the county government never really, until land starts getting subdivided and sold and there's more people with interest in the property, people don't look at the legalities of these things, right? If you owned a big, huge ranch and you only have one neighbor behind you that needs to get to their land, you just say, come right through here until there's 20 neighbors back there, and then all of a sudden it becomes an issue. So to me, I know I understand that the reason that the Forest Service closed the gate at the forest boundary is because if Owens has closed a gate, they can't dump forest traffic, public users of the forest out into a road that they're going to hit a gate and there's nowhere to turn around, coming from the backside. So the gate is mostly intended to block people from going in from the Fox Creek Road, but in the end, it blocks people coming out too. So in my conversations with Frank Romero, he's like, well, we got to close the gate because we can't dump RVs and people pulling trailers and all that business out into a space where they can't get out to the public road. But when I was a kid, that was open, and everybody for the 50 years before and the 30 years after had used that, or longer, had used that as a public road. I mean, that's how it was understood to be, however narrow or whatever it was. So maybe Owens has had the legal right to close the road, or a perceived legal right, but in the end, they took something that had been in use for 100 years plus and took it out of public use. And so that's how we got to where we are. I mean, the fact that it's seasonal to me is neither here nor there, because there are county roads that are seasonally maintained, or, you know, when the forest is going to close their side of it, then the county would have to close our side of it until, you know, from November 15th to May 15th or whatever the closure is. But to me, it always seemed to me that appropriate for it to be a public road. I just don't know how, as a policy maker, to make it that. But I've had assurances from the forest, from Frank Romero, that they haven't closed the road. The reason their gate is closed is because there's a gate and they can't dump traffic out of there if they can't get out of there. So I don't like the idea of shutting down ways into the forest for safety reasons, fire reasons, access, public access reasons, all of that. I'm sympathetic to the Owenses, because if some dingling gets stuck at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're right next to you, and they walk up to your house and knock on the door and say, "Can you help me get unstuck?" You'd be like, "No, I'm going back to bed." I don't know. But then you can't let people freeze to death out there either.
They try to back up and run in the creek.
Right. So I understand all the issues. I wish that the road was open for all the reasons I've stated. And I wish we could open the road and maintain it, or for seasonal use, for the summer months when people need to get in.
It starts out seasonal. Boulder Ridge, it used to be we didn't do Fox Creek. Going back when I worked.
Yeah.
Because Maggie didn't want people up there when she was working at the ski area. And people coming up through there and stealing stuff.
Yeah, it's basically all about the number of users. If you only have 3 landowners in there, they can pretty much agree on whether they want the road open or not. But when you have 300 landowners in there, or maybe 75 or 80, then it becomes a thing. And that's going to happen all over the county. And we have lots of roads in the county that are sort of handshake-ish, but have gaps of ownership or, legal access. It is something that Terry Jones and I tried really hard to work on, because we know that as subdivision increases, that gets more contentious. That's probably something that we're going to have to deal with in different places. Meebor Road was one of those.
And maybe a full declaration,
Yeah, a blanket declaration.
Yeah.
It's tough. So in this particular case, I don't know if any of my comments offer any help or clarity. The Forest Service doesn't have an issue with the road being open, but it has to be gated all the way out. And then when it's seasonally closed, they want a gate out there at Fox Creek Road that closes. Maybe you could snowshoe in there or cross-country ski, but it would be closed even to snow machines because it's a critical winter habitat. So those things could be dealt with, and probably the annoyances will never go away, because that's what happens when you have people. People are annoying.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. On that note, does anybody else want to speak? Yes, please, ma'am.
Commissioners, friends.
My name's Tammy Howe. And the reason, I'm professional and a personal interest in Dry Park roads. I was the original mapper in the assessor's office who reviewed and expanded on a bunch of Mr. Frank's research and conclusions. We pulled up some more deeds. And I guess I heard all the many concerns that you expressed, but the one that I've never been able to get out of my head, and my family has property up there. I don't snowshoe that area as much because it's just too far to like going. And it is closed in the winter, but I've enjoyed many wonderful trips and times up there. It seems to me that the original bone of contention is that the original map stated very clearly, and it mapped out the road and mapped out 2 small sections, and there were 2 owners. It said on the plat, they will assign their interests. They'd agreed to assign their interests to the Forest Service. So I don't know the legalities, but I know what the intent was, and that was the intent of the law and the plats, and only one owner followed through to the letter. And yes, this was, I don't remember the date on the map, but it was a long time ago. It wasn't a handshake deal. It was on paper. And I guess
So the point is that any further subdivision would be bound by that original. It would convey to the plats, the subsequent plats. Is that?
It was the definition of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And the very clear statement that there were 2 owners that were willing, and it says on the plat, they will sign over. It doesn't say they must. I know that's a different.
Or shall.
Or shall, yeah. We're getting into legalities there that I have no clear knowledge of. But it said they will. And that's even more than a handshake. So I'm not sure. I would like to know, really, if it falls outside of the county commissioner's responsibility to finish the letter of the law and complete the intent of the original ownership. Just because it wasn't done for a number of years. And probably before that state statute of 10 years. Doesn't mean we shouldn't be responsible. Maybe we should honor it and fix it. That original intent, I feel, that was written, probably a handshake too, maybe a beer, but it was written. And I'm not sure we can afford to ignore it, given the confusion and the acrimony and the closures that it's caused that did not exist 5 years ago. Those are my thoughts.
Thanks, Ms. Al. I appreciate it. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Libby Langford Pennington. And I kind of want to speak on the game and fish section of it, the closure for the winter time. It's closed from October 1st to June 15th to all motorized vehicles. You can access it via skiing, snowshoeing, horseback riding, hunting, just no motorized vehicles. And also what I want to say is, while there might have been 130 hours of grading on Fox Creek Road, there was only once in the spring, once when the road washed out, and once in the fall. And if you traveled on that road anytime between then, when there was all that traffic on there, you would understand why we don't want that road open. My grandma fought Dawn and Deborah Owens for years about it, and I'm going against her because of the traffic, the safety of everybody that lives on that road, And because I would much rather have them keep it open in the wintertime so that we can get our families in and out rather than open the road for July, August, September. So I urge you guys to not open the road again.
Thank you, Ms. Penny. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes, sir, please.
The point is, if we would have to spend more money out there commensurate with the amount of traffic, and maybe we already do need to do.
Oh, there's tons of traffic on that road already. My name's Carl Lang. We have a ranch where the cabins are that Tammy's talking about. That, if you look at the deeds, go down through there and everything. When we sold those cabin lots to these people, it came down to 20 foot for the road. That's where they own, they don't own to the road. And that's been proven by you guys, by us, the survey that we had done a couple of years ago. So actually the ones that have Ostermans, Owens, yes, they do have ingress and egress out of there. The rest of them ingress and egress from up on our land up on top of Fox Creek. So, you know, I don't know where this whole deed came from because it's been gone over and over and over. And I've never seen it. The latest plat comes down to 20 foot before the road. Except for Osterman. Osterman covers the road. The other thing that Mike didn't mention there, that corner where the 30-foot right of way would be, there's a huge spring there. And that spring will be affected tremendously. I don't see how you can really do it. As far as fire goes, there was complete access on the Mullen fire up and down that road. And I watched it every single day through the spot scope and down on the bottom. When I went up to get my cows out of there, that gate was never closed. The only one that was closed was the Forest Service gate. And I realized that maybe Scott's people had to cut the lock, whatever, because they didn't have a key. But that Owens gate was always open for fire. Always. I mean, it was never closed. So, to me, the only thing that people want that road open for is the access from Fox Creek to that gate. And there's trailers and Winnebagos and everything else up there that can't even make the corner. They wouldn't be able to make the corner here. So there we got a bottleneck. There's no park whatsoever up there. I mean, there's no park. So I would just like to put this to bed and say, you know, it's not worth it. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Yeah, please, sir.
Commissioner, my name is Al Johnson. I live on Fox Creek. Realize that this is Commissioner Richardson's campaign promise to get this road open.
It's not.
For his buddy over there. I'd like to have a little history on what's actually on the other side. It's Sheep Mountain Federal Big Game Refuge. There's not supposed to be any roads on at all. Frank Romero worked with Mr. Richardson to open this road up year-round for his logging trucks at the last meeting. What I'd like to say is that you probably have the right to condemn Owens' property, but there's a quarter mile of Mr. Langford and Mr. Osterman's property. It is in federal big game refuge. This is federal property that their property's on, and they have an in-holding. You guys don't have anything to say about it. That's about as simple as that. The proclamation also talks about the Forest Service not being able to come back and harass them or take their property for a road like this. It's in the proclamation. The only place you got to go is through, when's this? After that, we're talking about a federal bureaucracy act of Congress is what it's going to take to get Scotty up the road. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes, the comments to me, please.
next time I want you to look me in the eye when you lie about it. I have a policy preference or an idea for that road, but I'm not crooked.
Please address the chair.
You might disagree with it. But.
Yes, ma'am. Please.
Commissioners, Chairman, my name is Celeste Tavener and I live on Fox Creek Road. And yeah, yet another one of us. I do have a documentation from the Forest Service that when Craig owned that property, it did have that road listed. When Owens has bought the property, somehow that mention was erased. I have copies if anyone would like them.
How about the clerk? It would be great. Yeah.
Thank you. The road has been closed year-round less than 10 years. Before that, it was 100 years where it was open. And as Heber mentioned, it was open to Keystone, which was the county seat. Beyond people wanting it open for this or that or closed, for a proclamation that as much research as I did, I could never find that it was enforced. The bottom line here is letting folks close a road without protocol is dangerous, and it puts the onus on people who are affected by that, the victims. It also puts it on the county to have to pay time and money to try to negotiate and research this. I really feel that this is a poor way to spend taxpayers' money. Try to pursue, is it legal, is it not? I really feel that you guys need to work hard on establishing a code that if someone wants to close the road, that information is their responsibility. Those costs are their costs before the rest of us have to deal with the consequences of a capricious action. I don't feel that being belligerent or cranky should override laws. I feel like this road has been in place, and Osterman has a good point. It is a narrow road. The fact that that road probably shouldn't be used for Winnebagos or trailers or boats is very real. Why there couldn't be signage is beyond me. The other part of that is a fire danger. Well, it's true that road was open during the Mullen fires. Last summer, when we had a fire right at the intersection of the Rails Trails and Troy Park Road, that road was locked. And people came to Scott Davis's house, the fire people, to ask for permission to go up to fight that fire. If houses on Fox Creek Road were destroyed by fire, and if it was found that that road was closed, that the legality is questionable, wouldn't you, as commissioners, ignoring that and turning a blind eye to that, could the county be vulnerable for paying for those costs? I just think that the county needs to step up to the plate on road closures like this. Another friend of mine who is in the north part of the county, she does live, she's the one owner beyond the one ranch. And they have closed that road, they have dug up her road. It's perfectly legal on all the deeds, and yet she is the one who is paying thousands of dollars, and the county is paying for sheriff to come out to tell these people that in fact that road is a legal road and they have legal rights to their land. I think we are going to be revisiting this kind of problem for a long time if the county commissioners do not set a code for what you're gonna do if you close a road that's been in existence for at least 20 to 50 years. I would love to see Fox Creek Road open. I also think it's naughty to reward bad behavior. And in my mind's eye, no one had a problem when Don closed that road in the winter. It made sense. It was a safety issue. And no one wants to have someone come to their door at 2 o'clock in the morning, even though neighbors on Fox Creek Road have the very same problem. But closing it year round, just not the issue of, is it fair? Is there a habitat? It's a legal issue that we are all skirting around. And I think that's where the problem lies.
Thank you, Ms. Abner. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I don't get up much, so my name is Barb Johnson. I live on Fox Creek with my husband Al. We spoke just a little bit ago. And I just wanted to address some of the things that have been said. For Mr. Davis, it seems to be a fire issue.
Barb, could you address the chair, please?
Whoops, sorry. It
Thank you.
seems to be a fire issue,
Thank you.
that there's not access. And I'm not sure if Mr. Davis will remember this, but back when it was the Isabel fire, when the beginning of all the fires up there started, our property was affected, and I was the only one on all the family ranch. I was running around like crazy, and I met Mr. Davis at the front gate, and he was just kind of sitting there, and I had to introduce myself, said I lived there, and he's welcome to come up, and should I go open the pipeline gate, because it is locked. It's a road that the Cheyenne Pipeline accesses through our property. And so he kind of gave me this weird look, and then I just said, okay, I'll just go open it. And I went and opened it. And then through the course of 3 days, 2 or 3 days of firemen at our property defending, Mr. Davis told me and my husband that he was going to fight that fire, and he had cut any darn fence that he wanted to cut and build any road he wanted to build to fight a fire. So the mute point of a gate being locked this summer, not being able to access it, is, I maybe he forgot. I don't know, but you know, everybody opens their gates. And they are cut if you can't get through it. So I think fire protection, not a big deal. And like Jennifer said, you know, it's 2 miles the other way. So granted, the people that live right around Owens's are fed up, I think, because they have to do that. And I'm sure that's difficult, you know. And then there was a point on another subject, Mr. Richardson, that you made about you have a problem with agreeing with something if you don't know where the funds are going to come from. So to open that road, reopen it, it has degraded greatly. I think it's 7 years that the road's been closed. And so who's going to foot the bill for that? Who's going to get the access? Whose land's going to be condemned? You know, that's a bunch of stuff. And then I think the people that live there don't have the same attitude as my husband and some of the neighbors that have lived there longer about the wildlife. It is a wildlife refuge up there. And, you know, roads are not to run through it. We respect that out our boundary, and we do not drive outside into the refuge area or any area onto the forest. We walk or we ride horses. That's what we do. And, you know, so I don't know, it just seems like there's all these things that little tidbits. There's a road on a map somewhere my husband showed me that goes right through Hayden's property. That used to be a road that you would access up that, through that area. So a historical road, I think we can go back and dig up all these historical roads, and then if somebody has a bandwagon, wanna open them up too, things change, and it's just that there's so many things tipping the scales that I just believe it should stay closed as it is, and relieve the property owners of having to bail people out of snow drifts. And, people in the forest are usually up there partying and stuff, and they're sometimes not kind when they come and ask for help. But those are all my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Appreciate it. Anybody else who hasn't spoken? Would like to speak, please?
Chairman, commissioners. My husband and I are the newest residents of Fox Creek Road. And so it might be that, I really don't have the extensive background and knowledge that everyone else does. But I will say that when we were looking at the property that we purchased, access to the National Forest was important to us. Because, there are reasons to live up there. There are drawbacks. It's expensive. It's a long way to town. But access to the National Forest was a big deal. What Mr. Davis mentioned was that when you look at the maps and you look at all the GIS and you put in Laramie to Lake Owen, that is the public access that all the maps show. So there are people who are up and down that road every day looking to go down that road. And so when Road and Bridge talks about increased traffic, when, if that road were to be opened, one thing that I noticed when we moved to Fox Creek was there is a lot of traffic on that road. There are a lot of people that are actually looking to go up that public access still. And that road has only been closed year round for 5 years or so. It hasn't been 15 or 20. One thing I would like to say is we moved from an area where we were on a private road for 25 years that we maintained ourselves. And so I'm really grateful to the Road and Bridge to be living on a road that they maintain. And I have to say they do a great job, and I'm very grateful to them. I never thought I would be so happy to see plows in my life. I am so happy when I see a plow out there. And I've discussed with the neighbors and everyone what a great job the Road and Bridge does. So I understand the concern that there might be some increased expense if that road were to be opened. I would like to see the road open. I understand a lot of the issues that other people are presenting, but I feel like public access to public lands is such an important thing. And when Mr. Richardson mentions adverse possession, I really thought of that as well, because that road was open for 100 years and there is documentation that says it's a public road. And so I think that the county, because there is a great public interest in having that road open, I think the county has an obligation for due diligence to really look at, was that okay for just someone to shut that road down and take it away from public access after 100 years? Was that really all right? And when we talk about, public recreation, that's important. It's not a little thing, being able to have access to recreational lands. And the fact that the mileage from Laramie to Lake Owen is negligible when you have to go through Albany. It really depends on where you're at, doesn't it? You know, Albany County residents are all over the place. So like for me, it's a lot longer to go up through Albany to get to Lake Owen. And for a lot of people, it's longer. And we have people that have asked us, I can't tell you how many people talk about that road closure being inconvenient. Albany County residents who live in Laramie. So I'm not sure what all of the specifics are, but I think that adverse possession is something to think about. I also think that response times are important. So what if somebody's got a medical issue that's up there, you know, what's the response time? Is it going to be quicker, you know, to be able to use that as public access? I really enjoy the wildlife up there too. So I don't want to see things, you know, wildlife disrupted, but I also know from living up there that there's really no control in the wintertime over ATV traffic and snowmobile traffic. And that, you know, you don't have any control over that disruption of that wildlife. And I'm not sure if that's actually a refuge or if that's just a winter refuge, or if that's something that was ever enforced, the Sheep Mountain Wildlife and Lake Owen Refuge. So I would like to see the county take a close look at it and not just say, oh, we're not going to open that road. I don't want the road and bridge to have to spend lots more money. I really don't. But I also don't think that there was, you know, I don't think that public access needs to be maintained. You know, I don't know that it needs to be a county expense to maintain that access. So, and I understand that it could cause some increased traffic on Fox Creek, but I'm not sure how much more. So I'd like to see the county do some due diligence and figure out, was that actually legal for one person to close that road? And where is the legal access and easement? There's there's just a lot of different documentation about that. And I think we owe it to the public at large to figure that out, because there is a great public interest in it.
Thank you, ma'am. And your name? I didn't catch your name, please.
Katrina Price.
Katrina Price, thank you. Anybody else? Oh, Deborah Owens, you're on the floor is yours. Go ahead, please. You're muted, Deb. I'm not sure. Deborah, if you're trying to talk, we can't hear you.
Okay, is that better?
There you go. Got it.
Okay, we purchased the property from Larry Craik in 1994 that is in question for the closure of this road. We, in 2000, Brad Klingman at the Road and Bridge started this process at the request of Scott and Kathy Davis because of their financial wishes with their mortgage. So we've been dealing with this since that point. Terry Jensen and Corthell and King have researched this property and have reassured us, as has Alan Frank, and the surveys that were performed by the Forest Service long before Frank Romero. It was Sanders at that point, and it has been stated that it is our right as private property owners to close this road. We have dealt with people at all hours of the day, all temperatures, and many neighbors do. I agree, but it's not, if we own the property, it is our right to close this road. No access has been restricted. Everyone can drive around. I don't know about Miss Price, but it's still a matter of miles. And if she did not understand at the point that she bought her property that there was limited access, then that's her problem. When we bought our original property from Langford's, didn't truly understand the ramifications, but we've worked through it for 21 years. And we're ready for it to be finished. We want peace. And I'm sorry that the neighbors would still like to drive up the road. I'm sorry that the public would like to drive up the road, but we're done. And so if the county decides that they must do something, then that's your responsibility, and we're not changing our position. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. If you'd like to speak with Frank Nelson at Corthell and King, Terry Jensen is no longer there. I'll be happy to contact him and have him explain things to you. They have a drawer of files on our property and the easements.
Thank you, Ms. Owens.
You're welcome.
What's up?
I'd like to know the process to put an end to this. Do I need a petition? If I bring a petition to do away with Scott Davis's petition, is that how it works or what?
Well, I don't know that. Jennifer?
At this point, the road has been closed and has been closed. The option would be at the direction of this board to have our office look into doing adverse possession. There is case law in Wyoming that goes, so in 1919 and amended in 1921, they established a process through the state legislature for designating county roads. And in a 2005 case called Boykin versus Carbon County, it said that if those roads were not determined by January 1st of 1924, and then the procedure followed for designation of those roads, then all roads not recognized by the county commissioners per the requirements of the 1919 statute were effectively vacated, which means they were neither county roads nor private roads. They were just roads that existed. Adverse possession requires 10 years of continuous use. We no longer have that. So I think from a legal standpoint, from the county's perspective, I can do more research, but from everything I have read, from the case law that I read, from when I looked into this one after I first talked to Alan Frank, I don't know that there is a good outcome for the county to reopen, to succeed in court on a suit to reopen this portion of Dry Park Road.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Does that answer your question?
Pretty much, this has been hanging over our heads for a long time. I told the Owenses I'd be willing to join them in a harassment lawsuit against Scott Davis, just to get this taken care of one way or another. I know he's meeting, he said all this fire stuff. I was in the Mullen fire. All my gates were open. No firefighters came and protected my structures or my property. That being said, later on, they had no problem coming around and cutting any fences that they wanted to go anywhere they wanted. They didn't come back and fix any fences that they cut, but when they got all done, they went through my property, my buildings that burned down, and pilfered me. So the whole firefighter thing is a bunch of garbage. We don't need access everywhere in the world. We have a federal big game refuge there. We have a problem bringing our mule deer back, and we don't need another reach through a critical winter habitat area and a migration corridor. And that's what these people wanted to live by, and now they just don't want to walk.
Thank you. Well, this is just a discussion item, and so even if we wanted to take action today, we cannot, because it's not listed as an action item for us. Good discussion. Thank you very much. Thanks for the legal insight. Thank you, Rob, for giving us the background. And thank you all for participating. I guess we'll move on because there is no further, unless you guys would like to discuss it further.
I guess I just want to say that I find it a done deal. The road was closed. I didn't see personally. I was invited out, had the pleasure of being invited out last year by several of the landowners and to see the issue firsthand. That is a very narrow road, Dry Park, going to another narrow road, Fox Park. And I really would hate to see that much more traffic. There is a lot of traffic there already. To have that more traffic added to that, I think would be setting us up for just a very volatile situation. I very much care about that refuge, and the fact that there's no signage makes me question why didn't I even know that this existed and all until these homeowners, property owners let me know and showed it to me and all. So I would like to be able to protect that area and all. This is not a matter of having no access to Lake Owen, none whatsoever. There are other ways to go, and yeah, I'd like to be able to get to Denver quick on some new fast highway, but it's not reality, and this is private property, right? I don't always argue for private property rights. I think this situation, I just think it's a done deal. I don't personally want to see us going into trying to fight this anymore. I believe Jennifer has done a wonderful job of research here and investigating, and I don't believe there is a good outcome for the county.
Commissioner Rich, anything?
Well, I would like to comment that sometimes people, when I have a position, a policy approach that they disagree with, they think I'm not listening rather than that I just disagree. And I might have reasons for disagreeing that they don't understand. And so people tell lots of stories for and against something because they have what matters to them. But as a commissioner, I have to consider all of it, right? So my perspective on this is unchanged. It always has been the same. And that is, you've got the old highway to Keystone that's been there for a long time, and the public used it for a long time. The problem that we have is that the county never solidified that. So Don and Deborah Owens have the right to do what they have done. They absolutely have the right. And it's because the county never sewed that up as a public access in that sense. Now, there is a way to probably undo that, a legal contentious way, if that were to stay open. I'm not particularly sympathetic to the refuge thing because it's a winter refuge, not a year-round refuge, and the road existed decades before the refuge was ever superimposed on that space with the road going through it. So in the hierarchical order of things, I don't really see that. But what I do see is that if the county were to take legal action to open that road, and then take proper action to maintain, spend the proper resources to maintain Fox Creek Road and the Dry Park Road, because you have to deal with the spring, you have to deal with the narrowness, you have to deal with all of the issues to turn it into, you can't just say it's a public access and then leave it. It has to be done in a way that people can actually use it and minimize conflicts. And that's something that I can say the county doesn't have, we don't have the money to do that. I mean, if we don't have the money to fight the legal battle, and we don't have the money to make the improvements and do the maintenance over time that would be required to make that a usable road for the public and the people who want to access the forest. We don't. So that's kind of on the one hand and on the other hand argument that leaves no one very happy. Probably the people who want it to stay shut, it leaves them more happy than the people who want it open. But as a purely practical matter, we don't have the resources to accomplish that. We really don't. In our road and bridge budget, we just can't go, straightening out all the curves on that road and widening it, for a half a mile. We don't have it. And engaging in a legal battle also. I honestly think that Don and Deborah Owens have the right to do that. But it is because of neglect or oversight or just complete lack of understanding by previous commissions, and an assumption that the way it is the way it always will be. And we have that issue all over this county, and we're going to deal with this over and over and over again, because some of these roads are really old in the way that they were set up and their paths. I mean, we have described ownership to roads that have been rerouted. So where you drive isn't where our described ownership is. So we have described ownership in some places, but that's not where the road is. We have issues like that everywhere that we have to clean up. And I like as many accesses to the forest from a policy perspective and a user perspective. I like as many accesses as there can be, but I also don't think it's appropriate to have too narrow of a road, or one that has erosion issues or is unsafe, or all of the things that make this situation what it is. So probably for different reasons, I would come down in the same place as Commissioner Ibarra. And I don't know if it would have been this way years ago. But the Owenses have managed to keep that road closed long enough that maybe the adverse possession or the, sort of the, I don't know, the eminent domain or whatever aspect of it is enough time has gone by that you can't do that anymore. I mean, this is something that could be looked at, but we've looked at it a lot. And over about, since I was commissioner, it's been years. And my position has never changed. And I've never made any campaign promises to do any sort of anything. I don't make campaign promises to anybody. I never have, not on any subject. So I have a policy preference, but I don't make promises.
Thank you, commissioners. And I would just echo the fact that I have heard from 3 attorneys in my 3 years about this very same subject, 2 different county attorneys and a private attorney. And they all seem to agree to what the perspective that you heard from County Attorney Curran. And so the diligence, you do the best you can, but you do have to listen to experts at some point. And, I do sympathize, but we are where we are. And there's no action tonight, but there were, I'm not sure that it would be anything but a fool's errand to go against 3 attorneys that have advised us not to do this. And so if something else comes up, if there is some documents that nobody has researched or found, well, that might change everything. But right now, it seems pretty clear to me. And so thank you all for the discussion. I do appreciate it. I know This is a difficult subject for many of you, and I appreciate your candor and your kindness, and just leave it where it is. Discussion in a well-used discussion. Item 21, present for approval, resolution 2022-004, resolution vacating a portion of the 3rd Street public right-of-way located in Centennial Plat. Jennifer, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Gosar. So this is Mr. Larry Lang's vacation that we discussed last fall. I do need to know before I get started though, this should read to have approval of the resolution and then direct the chairman to sign the quitclaim deed and have the clerk record that quitclaim deed. So this commission approved Mr. Lang's vacation at a prior hearing. Since that time, the county clerk published the required notice and sent the certified mailings to the landowners, the neighboring landowners as was required. And Mr. Lang had a survey completed, which is in your packet, and I have the original for Jackie, to specifically define that 20-foot section that is being vacated. And there were no objections received when that notice went out. So at this point, this is just the final couple steps for you as commissioners to declare that portion vacated and get the quit claim recorded and filed. So Mr. Lang will then have that 20-foot section there.
Okay, thank you. Just who's ever making the motion, just if you wouldn't mind adding to direct the chairperson to sign the deed and have the clerk record the deed. So I entertain a motion for 21.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve resolution 2022-004, a resolution vacating a portion of 3rd Street public right-of-way located in Centennial Plat, and authorize the chairman to sign and the clerk to record document.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 22, present for approval, allocation of America Rescue Act funds in the amount of $5,865,601.40 for revenue loss to be spent on government services. Bailey.
Good evening, commissioners. Let's see. Now that the final rules have been released for the ARPA funding, one of the things that has been stated is local governments can allocate up to $10 million in revenue loss. This is different from the calculation we were supposed to do before. The Albany County has already decided to allocate a certain amount of funds, a certain amount of our portion already to broadband and a couple other items. So excluding those items that are already budgeted, that were already moved forward on, is that 5 million number that you see before you. And that's what I'm asking that we claim as revenue loss, which will hopefully streamline our reporting and open up some doors a little bit to allow you guys to fund a few different activities. Bottom line is we do still have to make sure that they do still fall, the items that you guys decide to fund do still fall in the mainstream of ARPA, like the big picture of it, what it was originally intended for. Also, we do still have to follow the deadlines of ARPA. We have spoken with our auditors this week. We have one question out to them, but the funding has to be spent by 2026, and the allocation portion we're getting clarification on. So we do still have some of the rules of ARPA, and then we do still have to follow OMB, which is the federal guidance that we follow for any federal funding we have. So there's items in there like you can't purchase alcohol, items like that. So I believe this is the way to go. How streamlined things will be, how great things will be, I don't know until we get into it, but I do think this is the right way.
Commissioners, any questions for me? I'd entertain a motion for item 22, please.
I move that we approve the allocation of American Rescue Act fund in the amount of $5,865,601.40 for revenue loss to be spent on government services.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Bailey. Looks like you're gonna be here a while with
Oh,
us.
yeah.
23, present for approval, allocation of American Rescue Act funds to subrecipients, Albany County Public Library, Laramie Connection Center, Laramie Reproductive Health, Laramie Soup Kitchen, and the Open School in the amount of $63,017.81 for premium paid to eligible employees between the date of April 1st, 2020 and June 30, 2021, and direct the chairperson to sign the subrecipient agreements.
One of the items that you guys had requested that I move forward with is premium pay for nonprofits. We've reached out to all the nonprofits, only 5 of them have gotten back to us. Well, 4 including and then the library on top of that. And that would be the total, 63,000 is the total of all 5 of those.
Thank you, Bailey. Commissioners, any questions? Entertain a motion for 23 then, please.
I move that we approve item 23 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 24, present for approval, allocation of American Rescue Act funds in the amount of $69,624 for the Laramie Soup Kitchen for implementing measures to respond to increased need and direct the chairperson to sign the subrecipient agreement. Ted, good evening. You're looking nice at 8:15 this evening. The floor is yours.
Why, thank you so much. Good evening, commissioners. Hopefully you can hear me fine. My camera hasn't not work all the time.
We got you.
Okay, great. So yeah, no major changes since the last time I presented during the work session. We did include a idea that we had for a meal distribution center. It's something I didn't talk about previously. It's an extra $3,500 to begin preliminary design for design and siting for a potential offsite or separate from our current facility meal distribution center that can be open longer hours, for example, and also create a better public space. So it is just the initial phase. It's just the design phase, but we didn't have any budget available for that. And this seemed like a reasonable fit with what some of the other agencies were presenting for. So other than that, you've kind of heard me mention everything else that's within the request, and I can entertain your questions.
If there's any questions for Ted, Soup Kitchen.
I don't think I have any more at this point.
Anything, Commissioner Richardson?
No, except to thank Ted for his passion and love and stewardship. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Entertain a motion for item 24.
I move that we approve item 24 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Ted. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 25, present for approval, allocation of American Rescue Act funds in the amount of $102,568 for Feeding Laramie Valley for sustainable food sovereignty for Albany County and direct the chairperson to sign the subrecipient agreement. Gail, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson and Commissioners Ibarra and Richardson for wading through all as I've been with you all evening. And thank you for all this amazing work that you do. This is the emergency portion of the request that for proposals that we brought to your attention. We pulled out the emergency needs, which cover continued need for supplies, materials to protect frontline workers and participants as we provide fresh fruits and vegetables on a weekly basis to people living with food insecurity. And then it's also to help us with the really unprecedented and unexpected impact on need for fresh fruits and vegetables for people living with increased food insecurity and in some cases brand new food insecurity as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the continued economic challenges as a result. We've, as noted in our proposal, we went from just prior to COVID-19 impacting us in March of 2020, we went from about $300 a week in costs for just direct food costs and it's now gone up over $1,600 a week. Every week it gets higher. We continue to get more and more people. We're up to nearly 600 people every week requiring fresh fruits and vegetables that they are just unable to afford or have access to. So this request is very specific to food costs, both during the pandemic in the early year, March 20th through December of 2021, and then also to help us get through the remainder of this winter season until we do have food growing indoors now in our year-round program, but this will help us supplement that until we actually have food production back in place. So this is an absolute emergency request. It made us tap into funds that we just not allocated for this. And with your help and helping to get us back on track with all of this, we'll be able to move forward with our sustainability plans for growing additional food year round and expanding our food security program for the local food system. And if I could answer any questions.
Any questions for Gail?
Gail, prior to COVID, did you always deliver as much?
Nowhere near as much. We always had about 3 delivery sites, which we had about 3 delivery sites up until that moment in time. We now have, and I think this number 85, in talking to staff just last week, they had another 50 families come in desperate for access to fresh fruits and vegetables, and at least half of those need delivery service because of health reasons or economic reasons or whatever. So yeah, the delivery thing is through the roof. I'm happy to say that we are about to launch our mobile food market in this spring. And so we're hoping that that's really going to help over the long term address some of the food access issues in terms of people being able to get to where the food is. But right now, yeah, it's pretty mind-boggling. I can't even, we just did not expect this. We're thrilled and people are so grateful and so appreciative and then so helpful in return. It's quite an amazing process.
I know that people used to have access to FLB through the Thursday Farmers Market. Did that have to end a little last summer, or were you still doing that?
Nope, we attend both. We attend both farmers markets every week. And so, yep, so we're there, and that helps people who want to donate food, vendors who want to donate food that they haven't sold, as well as for people to have access to, they can pick up their food there, or they can, contact us and sign up for programs. But yeah, we continue to be there.
Okay, thank you.
Richardson, anything?
Yeah, I always wanted to ask this question, Gail. Given the fact that we're at 7,200 plus feet, and this isn't really that great of a place to grow food, I'm guessing that feeding Laramie Valley has, our growing season's probably less than 90 days, right? It could be even as short as 75 days some years. So I have to believe that, I guess I'm asking how it works to sort of do the sustainable food thing and keep it local when we're that limited by the weather and soils and all kinds of things. I mean, what does your program look like during the non-growing months?
Well, a couple of things that we've learned over the years. One is that we were involved in for 7 years, we were involved in a national project called the Food Dignity Project in partnership with Cornell University and the University of Wyoming. And one of the things that we did is 4 years in a row, we actually studied backyard gardeners in Laramie, Wyoming. And they literally weighed every leaf, every stalk, every bit of food that they grew in their backyard gardens for 4 years running. There are are a few other studies in the country that have been done that way. None have been done for 4 years in a row. None of them have been done at 7,200 feet in a semi-arid, high desert, high plain area. And what we actually found was, in fact, that in a small backyard garden in Laramie, Wyoming, it is possible to grow enough food for the USDA recommended level of daily amounts of fresh fruits and vegetables for 2.5 months out of the year. And that's just in 30 square feet. So we've really belied that myth. That's one thing. The other thing is that several studies have been done across the state of Wyoming from several different sources that have determined that Wyoming could indeed provide everything that its citizenship or its population needs for a local food system, based on a couple of things. It requires 4 to 6 food hubs to get food from, say, Torrington to Laramie, or Laramie to Cody, whichever, so that we can swap off the kinds of foods we can grow in different parts of the state, share those with each other. And the other is we do have to have the ability to grow food year round. And so over the last 3 years, we've been receiving grants and developing programs through which we're developing hydroponic and aeroponic growth, which can be done year round quite easily. And we've been doing it for a couple of years on a pilot level, and are now preparing to expand that through food hub work and so forth. So we're actually
kind of like what Nate's story got going with Plenty.
Kind of. Yes, they are doing similar things in terms of the year-round component. Yes, what we're doing that's unique is that it is local, and then we are also doing a lot of cooperative work with Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. So we're joining some of those in this kind of area. Within 150 miles is considered local, but we're really focusing on Albany County and Wyoming, and to great success, and we're very excited about it. And I think you've probably heard where we've been, because I think I mentioned it when talking about our food hub development, is we're creating partnerships with the hospital. We have meetings set up with the University of Wyoming. They're very interested in purchasing that food. And that's where we get the state sustainability. We can increase the number of farmers and ranchers in the state, and in Albany County in particular. We can increase sales, and through those sales, we can then provide the emergency needs of people who, for a time, or perhaps even sometimes a long time, cannot afford to purchase the fresh fruits and vegetables that they need. So we see it as a big circular event that we're becoming successful at, and it's really exciting. And we really appreciate you considering helping us with ARPA funds for the emergency need to get us through these hard times, so that we continue to move forward with those bigger plans.
Well, I guess, so I believe everything you're saying. Then the question in my mind is, what's the cost per pound of locally produced food? I mean, with all of the extra challenges. To me, I bet you that if we trucked high quality organic produce for the same money we'd get twice as much or more for the same dollars. In other words,
actually,
high quality organic produce from California or somewhere where it just grows when you plant the seeds. You don't have to kill yourself to try to make it turn into something.
Actually, what we find, and of course it's changing right now. I mean, food that's being shipped from elsewhere, is not available. So what we found during COVID-19 is that, and this is why there's a great deal of opportunity right now to help support the kind of work that we're doing, is that the supply chain has failed us. That when you have fruits and vegetables, healthy food available only through long distance transport, and that falls apart, or we have drought, or we have wildfires and things, and weather that prevents it from getting to where it needs to go, then it's not a good deal. We find that it's about, right now, with things really high, it's about $3.28 a pound. Now that's across all kinds of specialty crops. So it's not, the joke about the $12 tomato is not accurate when you look at expanding the number of people who locally can grow and provide for sale to the local market. So it's really about shoring up the other capability of being able to locally transport and support local farmers and ranchers, so they have the ability to sell small amounts to a hub that then create large amounts to provide to larger markets. So it lowers the cost. And I'd be more than happy to share some of the some of the research and the materials that really back it up. You don't have to take my word for it.
Thanks.
Anything else? I entertain a motion for item 25.
I move that we approve item 25 as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing that all is in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks, Gail.
Thanks so very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks to you, Bailey, for getting this going. I mean, Laramie County has not distributed a fund, $8 yet from ARPA. And I think that goes a long way to the work that you and Evelyn have done, along with the rest of you who have engaged in it. So thank you. I appreciate it. Item 26, present for approval allocation of American Rescue Act funds in the amount of $200,000 for United Way for collective impact study, and direct the chairperson to sign the sub-recipient agreement. Evelyn, good evening.
Hi,
You've been
I was
with us.
question. I also wonder, Hubert, if your son can also get me a Snickers bar or something.
Yes, here,
Oh
Jeff.
my goodness.
It's an almond one. You're in business. No more hangry here.
Thank you all so much for considering this request. I normally would not have put it underneath of the urgent request, but we just actually had our second to last meeting this afternoon. And the coalition is at this very pivotal point where they all walked away with 30 items that they're going to do in the next 30 days. And then on the 15th of March is the last day of our of the person that we've contracted time with us. And so we're kind of at this very pivotal moment in transition, and my funding goes out at that point. And so that is why I asked for it to be reviewed here, but I have nothing else to add to our request for the Collective Impact Coalition, or but would be happy to entertain any questions.
Commissioners, any questions?
Evelyn, thank you. You have crushed this. And it was crushing.
Yeah, I do really appreciate it. I mean, I have heard from people who thought it wasn't going fast enough. And besides my blood boiling on that conversation, knowing what was going on in the back, I thought it was just completely unfair. And I think we are as far along in distributing this money and distributing this money equitably because of you and Bailey and your groups felt in collaboration. And so just want to set that record straight because I think it's really important. People understand that this is not such an easy amount of money to distribute, and that the final rule just came out December or January, late December.
Early January.
Early January.
It's pretty hard to approve grants and programmatic eligibility when you don't have the final set of rules.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I don't know if my blood would boil, but maybe. Just because, I don't know, it's easy for people to make assumptions about how it, or have thoughts about how it should be without really understanding the challenges. And that's tough. That's tough.
I appreciate you guys bringing the nonprofits in and hearing what it is that they could do with the money while they're still planning and still thinking through things, because very, very often as a nonprofit leader, do you get the opportunity to possibly realize a dream or to make up for something or a program that could have a huge impact. And so you guys entertaining thoughts and ideas and going through that process with everyone, I really value and appreciate it. And to Bailey for combing through endless numbers of paper. So thank you guys for that. And thank you for your willingness.
I just want to go and say thank you for both of you, your leadership role in this, giving advice and guidance to the nonprofits as well as to us, made it a little bit easier job. And I know, as Commissioner Gosar said, that there are people who were needing this stuff in the day it was announced, but we wanted to make sure we do it right. And Beta, you have definitely gone over and above to make sure that we are in compliance with everything we're doing, and your guidance and leadership Evelyn, has been awesome. So thank you to both of you.
All right, to entertain a motion for item 26.
I move that we approve item 26 presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Evelyn.
Thank you, and thank you.
Item 27, present for approval,
You're
allocation of American Rescue Act funds in the amount of $3,115 for drinking water upgrades to the Albany County Fairgrounds, and direct the chairperson to sign the sub-recipient agreement. Taylor, good evening. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yes. So this would, basically, we have one water fountain in our activities building currently, and it is just a little bit tall for someone in a wheelchair or a small child. They end up hanging on it. And so this addition of the water fountain, it's two, one that would be wheelchair accessible. The other one has a bottle filler on it, able for small children, people in wheelchairs, disabilities, those kinds of things, to be able to get water, and also fill their water bottles up. I did get in contact with a plumber, and he came out and looked, and it would be a fairly simple switch out. And I did provide Bailey with that bid as well.
Thank you, Taylor. Any questions, commissioners?
Yeah, this isn't, I guess, directly to you, Taylor, but we had several submissions for water fountains. Was there any working together to get a bargain with multiple water fountains, or each specific request needing a different kind of water fountain?
For the actual water bottle filling things themselves, I believe each one needs a different thing or a different type, because they are built in different times. And Roy was looking at his, and he's gonna order his off of Amazon. As for the plumbing services to install things, I believe they've all gone out for their own bid. But that's all I know.
And part of our problem was researching into the water fountains themselves and the ones that to retrofit with the water bottle on it, like just bring in the water bottle filler and hook it all up. Our water fountain was too old. So we were gonna have to go in, and I talked to Roy about this a little bit, but we were gonna have to go in and completely redo the whole water fountain anyway. But like here, they can just add the bottle fillers to some of them and not some of them, and he worked it out and that kind of thing. But we did have that conversation.
Okay.
But it was just kind of a unique need because we have to replace the whole fountain.
Okay.
And so it was just adding that one for wheelchair accessibility on the other side.
So it's a compatibility question. And the situations are different, I suppose, based on what you already have hanging on.
Yeah.
I entertain a motion for item 37 if you don't have more questions.
I move that we
For
approve
27.
item 27 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
28, present for approval allocation of American Rescue Act funds in the amount of $13,000 for drinking water upgrades to the Albany County Public Library, and direct the chairperson to sign the sub-recipient agreement. Looks like you're with us, Bailey.
I'm here. I believe from conversations I've had with Rachel, she has the library has the same problem as the fairgrounds. Those water fountains are just too old. They need to just kind of replace some of them to be able to do this water bottle filling station on top of it.
Commissioners, any questions? And Bailey, I guess if somebody comes up like not needing 10 of the 13,000, do they understand that that money comes back to the county?
We are putting that in the agreement, and one of the things I was going to be talking to you about was we me, Brady, Jackie, and Tracy have had some conversations that making these agreements with everybody, all these other entities earlier than our agreements, so that it can come back to us if they don't use it and we can spend those funds.
Yep. Super. I'd entertain a motion for item 28 then.
I move that we approve item 28 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 29, present for approval allocation of American Rescue Act funds, the amount not to exceed $7,000 for drinking water upgrades for the Albany County Courthouse. Roy Bailey.
Same thing, these ones just have, the drinking fountains of the courthouse are newer, so they take a lot less work. However, we have more drinking fountains, so it's just getting those pieces to go on top and a plumber to help install them. And just so you guys know, these county requests, I have put to exceed. So if it goes over, we have to come back to you. If it doesn't, then that rest of my it stays in the pot. Just so you guys know.
Commissioners, any questions? I entertain a motion for 29.
Move that we approve item 21 is presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Continuing on the lightning round, present for approval allocation of American Rescue Act funds in the amount not to exceed $7,500 for virtual courtroom equipment for the Albany County Attorney's Office. Jennifer.
Between Bailey, Tracy, and I, you've seen a lot of the three. So this is to upgrade the TV and camera system that is currently in Kurt's office, which is the only one that we have as an office right now that use where we can bring in witnesses and have more space than just cramming into small offices. So this is to upgrade Kurt's system because that camera and microphone are not stellar, and then to provide another one on a cart that can be moved between offices depending upon who has hearings or witness prep.
Commissioners, any questions? Entertain a motion for item 30, please.
I move that we approve item 30 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 31, present for approval allocation of American Rescue Act funds, the amount not to exceed $12,000 for the resurfacing of the elections parking lot. Jackie.
Mr. Chairman, I had the fortune to work with Bill Gorman before his departure to look at the drainage issue on the election building on the east side. This will help curb that problem and will correct any deficiencies that are there, that are currently existing there with the water.
Commissioners, any questions? Entertain a motion for 31, please.
Move that we approve item 31 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
It's a dang good thing our ARPA funds came along because we never had the ability to fix that.
Yeah.
And it was a huge issue and was never going to go away. So I am gratified that we didn't have to dig around on the couch to fix that one.
Right. Hearing and seeing that, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 32, present for approval allocation of American Rescue Act funds, the amount not to exceed $77,500 for express voting elections equipment. Jackie.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment to my request. Initially, when I spoke at the pre-agenda meeting, we were looking at purchasing new express vote equipment as an add-on to basically assist us during early voting, so that it would eliminate the need of having to print so many ballots, but allowing the express vote for each elector that comes in to get basically the card inserted into the machine, cast their ballot, and then put it on the ballot counter. In working with the Secretary of State's office, I have found that there's money available through them, and that is the approach that we're going to take, is to use the federal money that has come down to the state for the purchase of the express vote add-ons. That'll save us over $5,000. And I'm appreciative that the Secretary of State is allowing counties to seek any additional funding that they had left over from the initial purchase 2 years ago. So my amendment is to look at the other needs that we have in the office. I have had my staff work diligently in looking at what our other needs are. Going into this election cycle, we are ready for the challenges that are going to be presented before us. Actually, I went from an election team of 5 individuals down to 1 seasoned election clerk. And the reason for that is I lost 1 employee. I have 1 employee that will be a candidate, and I have another employee that will be out on maternity leave. Knowing that in preparation for the changes that may come down legislatively with proposed legislation, I'm looking at the potential of having the ability to have election support on both the primary and general election. The cost of that is $4,000, very expensive.
Right.
$4,975 for each election. What that entails is support the Monday before the election, election day, and the day following the election. The reason why I'm asking for support is there are new statutory requirements that we are going to have to follow. One of them is the potential of preparation should we have an automatic recount. We generally do that the day following the election. We now have legislation that will require us to do a post audit. That could mean anywhere from maybe 500 to 2,500 or 5,000 ballots that I will have to have a team assist us with. It also will require our preparation in preparing for the canvassing board that meets on the Friday preceding the election to certify our results. Trying to be more efficient with the processes that we have. I'm looking at equipment such as a letter folder, a comb binder, a laminator, supplies in regards to the various types of, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. The supplies that we needed for all of the machines that we have in terms of the thermal paper, the seals, all of this is a lot of money in my eyes. And this is tough because I want to be efficient, but I also don't want to be selfish. Just looking at these totals with the printer and cartridges that really add up to about $4,500. And these other supplies that I've issued, I'm looking at a request of approximately $26,000. That's a drastic amount from $7,500 for my initial request. I am asking for your consideration for the needs to successfully have the needed equipment that we have to basically meet the needs in preparation for this upcoming election cycle. And I appreciate any consideration, and I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, any questions?
I only have one. Are these all ARPA eligible?
Are these, according to Bailey, they are, and that's probably the hardest thing in looking at these needs. You know, we wanted to make sure that we were using or requesting the funds that follow under the guidelines for ARPA.
Cool. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the requested allocation of American Rescue Act funds, CFD 21027, in the amount not to exceed $26,000 for voting and election equipment.
Second.
The moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing that all those in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
You know, in
Yeah,
Mexico,
wanting
they-
to be professional. It's not selfish.
in Spanish, in Mexico, they have a saying, tirar la casa por la ventana. That's you right there. Just to throw the house through the
I think I know
window. That's when you get really extravagant. You're throwing the house through the window.
Item 33, discuss next steps for ARPA funding. Bailey.
All right, commissioners, let's see. Now that we've done the premium pay, we've done the emergency stuff. Now we're looking into what's next. Brady and I have talked this afternoon, and we feel we're at kind of at two directions of this. The first, we still have the nonprofits, and the second, we have the counties. So first with the counties, it's my opinion that I think a decision needs to be made on the public health building first. Then that would allow you to then go from there, because that is the biggest item or the largest item listed that's requested. So that would be the county. On to the nonprofits. What I'd like to do is take just a little step back, nothing major, but just a little to get a little more organized and have everything ready for our auditors. After we had a call with them yesterday, it makes me want to make sure we do have everything laid out perfectly. So when they come, I can give them everything and we're done. So what I'd like to do, first of all, I would really like it if you guys would set an amount that you're going to allocate to nonprofits. That's it. And then we're done. Then with that amount that you have allocated, go with more of the application process that was originally my thought, with like we do with the community charitable relief fund. This application process, I do realize, is a little bit of a step back. However, having everything on the same format, having everybody turn in an actual budget, this would make it easier for our auditors in the future. Because I do understand that we're kind of asking some of our requests to do double work, Brady and I have offered that we will help those applicants fill out this application, especially with the information we already have. We can fill that out for them and they can add in the blank. The other piece of this that I think would be a good idea is if we take this minor step back, we can actually advertise these funds and put it in the boomerang, give people just a little more time to be aware of them. I don't know how you're not, but be aware of them and put more of a thought process together. That was one of the complaints that I've been hearing is, well, this was really rushed. I understand that, but that wasn't my intent. My intent was just to get a number for us. And we've moved forward with some of these items. If we advertise that, we could give them about 6 weeks or so, get applications in. I would have a review committee. That review committee would go through everything again, make sure, and this would give us more details on what exactly they're asking, make sure it does qualify, and then we would present that to you. Much like the Community Charitable Relief Fund, much like we do in Canada. The reason for all this, like I said, it's going to make the grants office easier. It's going to make everything easier for the audit. It's going to make it easier in reporting. So those are my suggestions for you. I am happy to go in any direction you would like. But those are just my thoughts on it.
Commissioners, any thoughts?
Sounds good to me. I guess if we're going to put it back out there in that way, I would like to see, you know, just so you don't have to answer the same questions over and over again. Maybe there could be some way to, a link or something where people could quickly access what the flavor and rules are so that they could sort of filter their own intentions or needs first. Because if you have to be the concierge and take them by the hand through the process, every single one, it will kill you. It won't be at all efficient or anything. So I don't know if there's a way to do that.
And one of the things, I mean, Brady's already working on just kind of a template for it. And I really did. We're starting with the community charitable relief application we put out last December. I mean, it was quick, and we just put 3 things together, and the first page is that information page. And that's what I want to do, an information page. Everybody that's already applied knows what's going on at this point. It'd be for the very few that haven't applied yet or haven't seen them.
Mm-hmm.
And there
So we may or may not get it.
Yeah, and there will always be questions. I mean, I still get calls, and I will until this money's spent. I mean, it just will happen. But I just think that if it's a little bit better organized, I think it would make all of our lives a little bit easier. And I know I'm asking for a little bit of double work, but like I said, like Brady and I are happy to help fill out those portions of them. But I think there are other pieces of this that we do need more details from the nonprofit. And I really would prefer budgets, broken out budgets from them. So those are my thoughts.
Bailey, I know last week or a couple of weeks ago, you were approached by a nonprofit that hadn't come out before. And I think there we sort of thought of directing them to other possible funding. Is that being done at all with any of the other nonprofits? Is there room there, or have we already looked at that?
At this point, no, we have not been directing anybody, partially because I don't really know where to direct them at this point. If I knew of something, yes, I would definitely point it out. I mean, there has been a couple items that I'm like, actually, this is perfect for prevention. Why are we not doing this with prevention? So there's a few things like that, but other than that, some of them know exactly what this money's for. Big brothers, big sisters, they get it. They know it. They know it's a one-time opportunity, and they're going to go for it. So they did. They requested for that resource contract. And then there's others that are asking for smaller items, which is great. You know, it's what their nonprofit needs at the time. But to direct them somewhere else, I just don't know that information. I don't work in the nonprofit world. The grants that the county applies for are very different than grants that nonprofits apply for. But there have been items I've thought, even just with county departments, well, why don't we do that with this funding? Or like, why don't you look here? But I don't know everything in the nonprofit world.
Okay.
Yeah, Gail, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, just for what it's worth, since I'm still hanging around here, I just think this sounds great. I think that a lot of this is exactly what's needed at this point. Everyone's had a chance to do the dream and throw things out there, make you aware of things maybe you weren't aware of before, and just Bailey's been amazing, and I don't think you need to do extra work, Bailey. I think providing an actual form for people who are not familiar with this kind of process is just going to help them. And those of us who are familiar with it, it's going to be a quick fix to just move what we have into your format. And I just think, so just from the nonprofit perspective, also, you know, we provide a lot of VISTA members and AmeriCorps members to especially the small, newer nonprofits. We'd be more than happy to talk with people if they need help, how to set up a budget or how to do a narrative because they're not as familiar with grants. Anything that we can do to help, we'd be more than happy to help provide some of that assistance. So I just thought I'd toss all of that in, and thank you so much for working through all of this for all of us.
Thanks, Gail. Yeah, and I would echo that the budgets are not anything new. If anybody's a community partner member, they fill those out, and that's not too onerous. And the things that I think are helpful is like a fillable PDF form. right? Or have it to them in Word.
Or
right?
if you
So they
get
can-
actually a Google form.
Yep,
could be used
there you
for-
go. Yep.
Yep, Brady's already, I don't know how to create those myself. Brady does luckily, so he's been working on one. And then more of a fill in the blank Excel document for the budget is what we're.
Super. I don't think that's too much to ask, and I think that this is a real opportunity and we should be careful about it. The one part I have is
I think a decision needs to be made on the public health building because that will then basically tell you, okay, you're gonna spend a big chunk here, you know, then you only have so much left to spend. So I think that is something you guys should need to, or you guys should think about sooner rather than later. But the only reason I was thinking that for the nonprofits is because then it kind of gives an end game too. One of the things, I was outside when Kim was speaking on her items. This is it for the public health money coming from COVID. So there is an end game for everything. And I think it is important that people know that. So, I mean, I understand if you don't know it now, but maybe sometime in the future near future would be best to just kind of let them know that, okay, yeah, the county has 7.5 million, but we're not issuing 7.5 million to the nonprofits. That's not our plan. But just to kind of give them some sort of a plan. I mean, and then, you know, you could have something, you know, Steve at Big Brothers could have an emergency that comes up and then you could decide to fund that in the future. But I think just from what I've seen Laramie County do, what I've seen with the community charitable, what we're already seeing, these nonprofits know what they need money for right now. And yes, items are going to come up here at the county too before, you know, we all get all this money. So I think just kind of giving an idea would be nice, but I understand too that you guys just don't know yet.
Yeah, I think the question that Tiber asks a lot of is really important. Like, when this money goes away, how do we continue on with what you built? You know, I really do think sustainability is something that has to be considered in the nonprofit, even if it's one-time funding, right? Because there's really no point in my line of work to set up this really cool mental health thing that lasts for a year.
If you outgrow your bridges, then what do you do?
Yeah.
You know, with one-time funding.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that I am inclined to go forward with a public health building solution, whether it's the one building or some other.
Yeah.
But, yeah, just in concept, I'm inclined to go forward with it because that's festering and it's never going to go away. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. Yeah. And when you look at ongoing costs like building maintenance costs, utility costs, functionality of the space, you know, if we decided to remodel that building that they're in, it would never be what it needs to be. It's just too funky. And we're PO folks over here, right? We don't have the tax base to attack projects like this without extra help. And to me, this is a unique opportunity that won't come back.
Yeah.
So I'm inclined to attack that one and solve it. Kind of for all those reasons. But also it depends on how much it costs. Because I wouldn't want to leave real needs in the nonprofit world not dealt with. I just don't know where the balancing line is because I haven't seen the numbers. And I could be convinced to change my opinion too. That's just where I'm at right this minute.
Yeah, and if you could give us like the updated numbers, I know that with the public health, you don't give them tonight, you can just send the spreadsheet with us. I know that was, you know, I thought at 1.2, a little over 2 and some for the purchase and the remod, and then the remod came with like 2.4 without the purchase. So now we're looking more like 3. And so I know you can't give those exact numbers, but what you know right now, best guess would be great, so then we know what we're dealing with.
And I believe in one of the emails I sent you,
Yeah.
I mentioned that Tracy and I may have another idea for the purchase of the building, just so then the purchase of the building wasn't with federal funding.
Yep.
Tracy, do you remember what that might be, or is that is that no longer an option? I can touch base with her.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, no, I'm here. I was just responding to a text at the same time. I was thinking that because of direct aid, we'll have that for the next 2 years, that we can maybe use the direct aid for the funding of the purchase of the building. Well, I guess if it gets approved at legislature this year, let me add that. We should have it for 2 more years.
Right.
So yeah, the only reason we thought that is if a purchase of property doesn't touch federal funds, I think it makes everybody's life a little easier, and a
There's
little
no
cleaner, less hoops we have to jump through when we want to do something with it. So that was our only thought about that. And then the construction piece, the 2.4 would come out of ARPA. So that was just our thought, but I can definitely get you guys updated numbers. One of the things I do want to point out right now is last time I spoke with Interfaith, that resource center listed for $1 million. That things are up in the air with that, because I know we had talked with Evelyn about possibly talking with the state. So I don't know if that item's still on the table at this point.
Okay.
So then if that item's not on the table, that kind of drops the nonprofits, these nonprofit requests down to 1.5 roughly. So just to give you a few numbers there, but.
You know, and interestingly, if the county, one of the things we haven't maybe thought of, you know, we look at the cost side, but then we have an asset in the form of the old public health building that has value that comes back into our general fund when we sell it, and that has to be kind of, you know, understood also, right? Right.
Well,
because it's a way to backfill on the backside in a certain sense, depending on what funds are used.
I had another idea even for that building.
Mhm.
So it's not, that building's not completely a lost cause. I mean, there's a few minor things that need to be done with it, absolutely. For public health, it just doesn't seem to make sense anymore. They're outgrowing it and you can't use it. But you guys kind of like the idea of the resource center with the nonprofit. You could lease it to the nonprofit at a reasonable rate. So then you're kind of killing two birds with one stone almost.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I've been thinking through all these different ideas, you know, what you could do with that building, or, you know, drug court could move into that building. You know, then you have options because you own that building already. If you acquire another property, that's a good thing for the county just as a whole, in my opinion. But, or you can sell it and, you know, get the money from that. It's all up to you, but there's options, is all I'm trying to say.
Or even the downtown clinic might be able to use it. So
Maybe.
they're not terribly shoehorned into their space.
One of the dreams, yeah.
We'll burn that bridge when we get there.
So, okay, so at this point, from what I'm understanding, is you guys are okay if I move forward with the application process with the nonprofit.
Yep.
Are you guys okay with a deadline for them for April 15th, right in the middle of that month? That gives us time to get you guys an application by your next meeting. You guys can review it and then approve that at your next meeting. And then we can get it out there. We can get it to the paper. We'll have Adam posted on the website, just like I do with TANF, and have them fill out a budget. And then after the 15th, I'll get a review committee together. I don't know if one of you would like to sit on the review committee, or if you would just like me to do, like, Jackie and Tracy, Brady, myself, and maybe Evelyn would be a good one. And then we can present to you what we think. Okay.
I suppose we are the ultimate review committee. Right?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be on the review committee, because then I'd have to review them twice.
No, they're gonna be so much fun because you're already ready. So we can either shoot, I don't know when the second meeting of April actually is. It may have to wait for the first meeting of May to give us time to review.
Yeah, whatever works.
Okay.
Is that enough time for the nonprofits?
That
Is
gives
April
about
15th?
That gives about 6 weeks. I mean, if you would like more, we certainly can do that. Commissioner Gosar,
It's
you are a
okay.
nonprofit yourself, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's, if the form is manageable, yeah, that's enough time. Right? I mean, especially because most of these nonprofits have already generated the ideas, you know, and so for me personally, and I'm probably as average as anybody as an executive director, I'll just move my budget numbers that I have on an Excel spreadsheet and I'll move it onto your form.
Perfect.
And with a narrative, and if it's not too lengthy, you know, that could be, you can get that all done easily and run your nonprofit in a week.
Yeah, we don't want it to be lengthy. I just want to make sure, you know, like I said, the same format, a little bit better organized, and just make sure we're getting all the answers we need. And sustainability is a question that we plan on asking anyways, because that is part of our, but like, you have to be able to sustain this. That's why they don't fund positions out of this money. So, okay, perfect. I'm glad we got a plan, and I'll let you guys think about the public health building.
Well, Mr. Chairman, is April 15th too long? I mean, you know, we're at the place where if they've already done the work, they're like, oh geez, in a day, less than a day, whatever, however long it takes, they could transfer the work they've already done onto that form. I mean,
I think the thought though is that Betty is allowing for time if any new nonprofit shows up.
Yeah, to be able to give time to advertise and, you know, anybody that did miss it the first time, I mean, at this point,
How
people
they
should
did,
know, but.
we got that one.
Yeah, we did get the one, and then we had one shortly after we did the first one, but then at this point, I won't have any excuse. So they should know about it. So that was my only thought for the 16th, is if a nonprofit hasn't already thought of that.
Yeah.
April 15th is a Friday.
Yes,
And our
the
next
19th.
meeting is on the 19th, but if Bailey gets the applications by the 15th, they could review them that whole week of the 19th, have them turned in to the clerk's office in time, like Monday, the 25th, in time for your meeting on the 3rd.
Yeah,
Does that work? Okay. That's the deadline we'll shoot for. And I will not be here for your next meeting. Brady will present the application.
Okay, cool.
And
And people can always turn them in early, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They
You
can
know?
turn them in early. And I will have nonprofits that do it.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
But, you know, just to give everybody that fair shot.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to item snow removal, item 34, snow removal at parking space number 6. So just an idea about what happens when Roy's gone and it keeps snowing during the day. I will reach out to the city and ask them if they would be their backup snow people and what that's going to cost. And that also might make some inroads for lawn maintenance in the summertime. Since they're doing their lawn, we might just pay them to do our lawn. I know that could be a hassle for Roy too. But more importantly, I guess space number 6. We had thought that would go, that was from the drug court people moving out. And that might go to people like Rob or David or whoever who comes here frequently without a parking space. You guys' thoughts on that, or would you just like to get it to somebody who's here already? No. I don't know. I know.
I have no comment.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny. If you go to any private business, they don't park all their people right up around the building. They make them park at the end of the parking lot so that old ladies and pregnant ladies and everybody can have the prime spots. And here we are, we ought to all park on the street at 7:30 in the morning and then have the inside spaces be public spaces. To me, we used to have a commissioner's space, or basically a designated open space years ago for whoever was coming and going. But I mean, you could park over there behind 501 or, down the street a block and a half. To me, it's never mattered to me. So I don't know. I don't know.
You guys that are here more often have a thought about it?
I mean, for us that are here all day long, once you park in the morning, you're okay.
if you're trying to run over and drop something off and you don't want to have to park 3 blocks away to haul a ton of stuff into the courthouse, that's sometimes a problem. But then the solution to that is everybody parks at the top of the ramp and turns their flashers on just to run in and out really quickly.
Like a loading and unloading, it's great.
Exactly. So, I mean, I think it's, I don't care.
You guys actually, the courts and the attorney's office actually has a lot of people who come and go on official business who kind of have to hunt around for, and they bring stuff with them and take stuff away with them, you know? You know what I mean?
Yeah, but everybody who does that, all those of us that are here all the time, they're all well versed in where to park and when to come and when the good spots are. Like during the lunch hour when people are moving in and out more, it's easier to find a quick spot just to run in and out.
Mm-hmm. We never tow anybody if they pull up right here and throw their flashers on and run in real fast. So the sort of the 15-minute parking isn't that hard. I don't know.
On the city streets, you have to be careful that you're not in the city permit parking because we'll get ticketed and those are big tickets.
They don't ticket out here on the half-hour parking though.
No, because they know that's all us. But like where they have the city parking districts.
Sure, because of the university,
right?
Like just right up the street right here.
I got parking space 5 blocks away I could charge.
Right? I was gonna say, sometimes there's parking available behind our 112 building. We mostly park behind. So there's 5 or 6 or so spaces back there that are usually full of all of us that work inside, but.
So what's our consensus that it's just a designated open space for? I mean, the public wouldn't know that necessarily, but for any county people who are coming and going or whatever. Where's space?
Where is
on that side?
It's on the west side.
Yeah, that seems reasonable to me. Leave it open for county folks. Is that what the intent idea was? To try to do that? Well, for the county employees or people like Rob or those people that don't work here but need to be here. And I don't know how much he's here. You guys know that. I don't know.
Yes, let me be the advocate of concern. I hear on a pretty regular basis, how come this county employee gets to park there? And the rest of us don't. And so, I mean, I don't have the answer. I say I don't know because I really don't know. The intent was, you know, when you think about it, there's David and Rob and Kim, and it used to be Bill Pesca when he was delivering supplies. I mean, Bill was probably parking over here with his flashers on because he couldn't find parking close to the building. And so actually those department heads come more often than other individuals. And so that was why the question was raised. I know that the judge has asked permission for her court clerk to park there. I know that another elected official has asked for her employee to park there. I mean, the requests keep coming in and I thought, well, I don't have the answer, so I'm going to bring it forth before the Board of County Commissioners. Because I guess if you're early, it's not hard to find a parking, but you know, if you're running an errand on behalf of the county and you use your personal vehicle and you come back, you don't always guarantee that you're going to get your parking space back. And so that's the reason for the request to put it on the agenda.
So offsite county employees, offsite courthouse county employees, and call it good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna come to CHR, you're gonna come to see Christina. Yeah. Envy is a bad thing. I make it a point not to engage in envy. It's a waste of energy.
I know David and Rob often park when they come, they park in the 501. And they just park far enough to the side that you can still drive, like where the old drive-up teller used to be. They just park far enough to the side that you can still drive in and out if you have to, so.
Yeah. So if we were gonna make it a designated open just a rotating whoever needs it for a few minutes space. We would just notify everybody by email, county employees, hey, space number 6 is, don't camp out in it, it's the rotating space.
Yeah, reserved for offsite county employees. I don't know how else to
Right.
put it.
I think you have to specify that.
I think
Yeah.
you do too, or you're gonna have everybody
Yeah.
parking in there. And you won't get much of the public because it's on
The
that
other
west
side.
side and you have to go through the restricted street use sign and pull in and.
Okay, we beat that enough.
Yeah,
Everybody
no.
feel like that's all right? Okay. Item 35, approve payroll and vouchers for February 2022. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept payroll vouchers for February 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. We are now at the 3 hours, 15 minutes. Let's take a little break and then we'll come back and do the executive session. So let's hit back at 9:30. Is that too much time?
If I could make
Executive
the,
will be quick, I believe.
I could make the motion now, because there's some transition that happens, and then we just start up as regular.
Let's do that. That's a good idea.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we exit the regular session and move into executive session pursuant to Wyoming statute 164405 A3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Leaving regular session, entering executive session at 9:20.
I was
Now
gonna
we can have
say,
a
but.
We
can-
natural trend.
We're now back in regular session. Time is 9:40. Item 39. Action if needed regarding executive session. There's no action required. You guys can correct me if you're wrong. And then item 40 is seeing no more business before the Albany County Commission on February 15th. I move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all and have a great evening.